recognize you without your scarf.
Yeah, right? Big change.
Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park governing body for Tuesday, April 26, 2022. First, we have approval of the agenda. Let's strike let's strike 7A since the minutes are not there yet, so there is no consent agenda. City Manager, we do not have a closed session, is that correct?
I'm the city attorney, but I'll answer for him. That is correct, ma'am, yes.
Okay.
Don't give me that job again. I don't want to.
Yeah, okay, okay. Okay, do we have a motion to approve?
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Please join us in a moment of silence, and Vice Mayor Banks, would you lead us in the pledge?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, there will be 3 opportunities to make public comment tonight since we have 2 public hearings, but this is general public comment time. Is anyone signed up?
Mayor, I just want to have a point of order here real quick. If Daryl's actually participating, then there has to be a vote because we're no longer under the governor's rules. We're under the FOIA requirements.
Okay, okay.
So I have to pull it up real quick, but there needs to be a vote of the governing body. It's okay with him doing it if it's a personal reason.
Okay.
And I believe we just have to know where he is and
Okay.
whether or not that personal reason has been conveyed to you already.
Yes, yes. Councilmember Moore, would you like to state where you are and your personal reason?
Yes, I am here in my house in Manassas Park in Bloom's Crossing, HOA, in my upper room, the office, and I'm here because I'm not feeling well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so that's actually, I think, a medical reason, then it would be
Yes, yes.
not count against him in the total number that he could
Okay,
do this for.
would you state the motion then, please?
I appreciate that, Dean.
Yeah, I have to verify, but this would be to authorize Councilmember Moore to participate remotely pursuant to the city's policy under the Freedom of Information Act.
Do we have a motion?
Moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you, Dean, and thank you, Daryl. Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yes. Okay, next we have public comment time. Is there anyone signed up to make public comment? Okay, no one. Is there anyone who is not signed up but who would still like to make public comment? Seeing no one and hearing no one, we will move on to the public hearing. The first public hearing is for the creation and sale of Parcel A1 to the Village at Manassas Park, LLC. I declare the public hearing open.
I'm going to go ahead and drag some stuff over here real quick. Trying to get it up here. Well, we had this set up before, but apparently did not. Okay, so here is, this is, well, let's go ahead and show this. This is this area here is actually the parcel that's going to be created. It's called proposed, or it's called Building C in the Comprehensive Development Agreement that the governing body entered into with the Village of Manassas Park almost a couple years ago. This building is being constructed. Is anticipated in the Comprehensive Development Agreement that it would be conveyed over to Village of Manassas Park. We're getting to that point where we really need to do it. A couple things I just want to point out, though, and the reason I'm showing you this one because it's a little easier to see than the next slide, which is the plat. This hatched area here is an area that's a common, it's called a common area. And it's over here shown on the plat as such as well, okay? And then that allows basically it's on the property of the Village at Manassas Park, but that's the area that can be included in the overall plaza area during special events. They can use this how they want at other times, but for special events, the city manager and the tenants or the owner would work to find out how they could relocate their tables, maybe do something in here, kind of, back and forth, put something around the sides here, something that would allow people to stand in there if necessary. It's marked off by these planters, so it's not something that most people would expect to be in, but just in case we have overflow traffic, that's what that's for. Also, as we do with most projects in the downtown area, we have a provision that allows the city to go in there and do maintenance and repairs on the site if they don't do it, because this is a critical piece of the downtown. That's on the entirety of the parcel, and you can see this, the maintenance easement here, so it allows the city to go on and do it, and then the city can go ahead and recoup the costs if they do so, okay? And then it also conveys the parcel to BMP here. So creates two parcels, one of which is the current city hall. It will remain owned by the city. The second one will be created, parcel A1, to convey by this document to BMP at Manassas Park. Any questions?
Okay, thank you.
And also, the VMP has asked that this get voted on tonight after the closed meeting because of the urgency where we are. You can see we're,
Okay.
pretty close to being done over
Vote
there.
this evening. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Moore, let's start with you at home. Do you have any questions or comments?
I don't have any questions or comments, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments here?
Really quick.
Yes, ma'am.
Dean, because I'm not very good at visualizing the map,
Yes.
where is that now?
So if you look right across the street, you have City Hall on the right. That building right to the left as you're looking at City Hall from this building, that's the building we're talking about.
Okay,
And you can see it's all already constructed.
Yeah.
Let's see, the exhibit we have here, let's see, if we were to look at this right here, the current City Hall is over here.
Okay.
We're meeting. So we'd be looking at here, the new City Hall's over here. You can just see the edges of it right there. So this is the building that's, right over there across the street.
okay,
And this is the walkway between the buildings.
okay,
So the idea would be that we're gonna have, we'll have a coffee shop here, they will have tables around here. They're gonna probably also have to move their tables separately with the lease agreement with the city. And then these two would probably, we'd probably work something up where they can all put their tables down in here just to take advantage of the area and the people, but to allow this area, say for a movie or something that's being shown, to be used by the general public, just to stand around or sit in.
okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
That'll help the folks at home, too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make that clear.
Yeah. Any other comments or questions? Okay. And voting on, normally, public comment, yes, excuse me. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment on the public hearing? Nope, seeing no one and hearing no one. Let's move on to the motion. Normally, we do not vote same night, but there is a sense of emergency.
Meeting first.
I beg your
Close the public
pardon?
hearing and meet first. Close the public hearing first and then take a vote.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Second.
Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstained, motion carries. Thank you. I'm sorry, Councilmember Moore, did you have a question?
No, I was just voting on the motion. Thank you.
Okay, the motion then is that the governing body approve and authorize the mayor to sign the declaration of subdivision and deed of conveyance and easements and the accompanying plat of subdivision and easements that will create Parcel A1 and convey Parcel A1 to the Village at Manassas Park, LLC, as presented and subject to final review by city attorney.
Moved. Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank
Okay, moving on to the second public hearing. Our second public hearing is replacement and updating of the city's existing ordinance regarding garbage and trash. I declare the public hearing open.
I'll tee this one up again, but we do have Laura Kokenauer here from Department of Public Works, and she can explain any particulars. She and I have worked to get this where it is today. She put an awful lot of upfront work into this, and then she just gave it to me to kind of make it look pretty. So a lot of this is hers. So if you have any specific questions about it, please let me know, and I'll turn it over to Laura.
Okay.
But now I will say that the RFP for a new solid waste collection and disposal company has been issued. They have been shown a copy of this. We have some comments on this. I have a few additional changes that I'd like to pull up here in a second while Laura's explaining this. A lot of it's just definitions based upon comments we received from these potential bidders. So I'll go ahead and pull that up while she's up here answering your other questions.
Okay. Welcome, Laura.
We gotta have some because I haven't found my thing yet.
Actually, can you give just a really quick, for the folks that are at home, a quick overview of some of the changes?
Right, and a lot of this has come from our comments and discussions over the last few years. You know, I've put the spreadsheet tracking.
I'm sorry, Laura, I'm having trouble hearing you. Can I ask you to take your mask off if possible?
I've tracked your comments for the last few years in a spreadsheet and service requests for Patriot. And I've sort of funneled that into the need for an updated ordinance. The ordinance we had before was rather outdated. Just to give you an example, the first section, 13.1, regulated the largest capacity trash can to be a 30-gallon galvanized. All our trash carts, of course, are 96. So we're just little things like that, and then to bring us current with the local jurisdictions. But some of the things, one of the big issues I hear from residents is there's no clarification. For example, when can we put carts out? When do we have to bring them in? So all of that is included in that. There also, I worked with Mickey to make sure there was information regarding where carts need to be stored when they're not out at the curb properly. Regulations, I know a recent issue has been litter coming out of the trash trucks. And so that as the industry moves towards the automated side-load trucks, loose garbage in trash cans becomes a problem, because if you've ever watched them, it tips the cart over the truck, the lid drops open. On a windy day, it's blowing, and the driver oftentimes doesn't see it. One of the parts of this ordinance is to require the use of plastic trash bags within the trash cart, and that's what a lot of jurisdictions are moving to reduce litter being blown around. So on a windy day, if a cart gets knocked over, it's still contained, but while they're tipping, you're tipping bags, not loose garbage all over the place.
Are we going to get the word out about that? Because many, many residents do not secure their trash as have you. I mean, many of us do, but many do not.
Once this has been approved, absolutely, I'll actually put together something that kind of explains or introduces the new ordinance to residents and include it in the next billing statement, probably a 2-page document that really just gives some highlights of it, and then refers them to look at it in more detail. But those are just some of the highlights there.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, ma'am.
Sometimes when people are out taking a walk or just out and about and they find garbage on the street they'll throw it in the nearest trash can, which isn't necessarily theirs if it's a trash day and the cans are out. So that would not be secured. How would we enforce something like that?
Loose trash on the street.
Yeah, that happens all the time, and it happens to be trash day and the cans are on the curb. They'll throw it in the next can as they continue on their walk. So now it becomes someone else's house that has loose trash.
That's true, and I don't know how with someone just walking down the street, how you could possibly control that.
Right.
In my opinion, I mean, the fact that they would be willing to pick it up and put it somewhere is a plus. I see so many people just walk right by it and let it blow around. So, you know, hopefully that doesn't happen too often. And again, hopefully there won't be as much trash blowing around once we require them to secure it in the trash bags.
I have a quick question on section 13-15, number D. It said any waste that can't fit into the container is considered bulk waste. I noticed sometimes on the Friday, not the Friday, but the Tuesday before a trash day, folks don't, if they don't have another trash can, they'll have bags out there of other trash, so that would be considered bulk waste?
If it's a matter of regular household trash and they just don't have another receptacle, and this is one thing I've also addressed. We've had residents, just an aside, we've had residents sometimes put out an excess of trash carts, 10 to 15 carts. So this creates also a maximum of 4 carts. In any configuration, you can have 2 trash, 2 recycling, or 1 trash and 3 recycling, however you choose to do it. You're issued 2 carts per the contract, and then you can purchase up to 4 to put out beyond that. As far as bulk waste goes, this is more, not so much the volume of trash, but the actual size of it.
Okay, so like someone's putting, I don't know, like an old bed out there or something, that would be considered a bulk?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Councilmember Moore, do you have any comments or questions?
I do have a question. Green waste, can you just help me understand yard clippings, things of that nature? Which trash bin are they to be put in, or how are they to be handled?
One of the things that I wanted to address in this is because yard waste or green waste has historically been handled as trash. We now have a line item in the proposal form to give us a pricing on separately collecting it as yard waste for recycling. If we choose to go that route, then we would be required to either use a hard-sided rigid plastic container or the biodegradable paper yard waste bag. Because if you're recycling it, you can't put it in a plastic bag.
Okay.
So in the interim, while the city is still determining whether they're going to include green waste in the recycling, and we're adopting this ordinance today.
No, you would be voting on it next week.
Oh, well, okay, next week. We still won't have it in place, I don't believe.
No, in the interim, until it's approved, you would continue to do what we've been doing over the last several years, which is treating yard waste as trash. So you could put it in a container or a trash bag. It really doesn't matter because at this time, it's being treated and collected as trash.
Fantastic. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I would request that in 13.5 under B, it says that all,
Let me get up there.
maybe that's the wrong section, but you said that all the trash needs to be put in plastic bags. Could we also include the compostable trash bags that are still the same durability, but are not necessarily made of plastic?
Oh, the paper yard waste?
Well, they're not paper. They actually have like the look of plastic, but they feel a little bit different.
Okay. Oh, okay, yes. I
It's just
do
a
what you're saying.
compostable trash bag.
That would be acceptable, yes. And
Yeah, if we
can
could
look
just
at that.
include that in here.
Sure.
Thank you.
Let's do that, because I think we just have the rigid plastic 96-gallon refuse containers, right?
Right.
That are specifically called out here.
Well, I'm not talking about the refuse container. I'm talking about the actual trash bag that people are putting their trash in. So maybe that's under B, unless I'm reading it wrong.
So they could use the rigid container, the paper biodegradable, or the compostable bag.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something to secure it, but it doesn't necessarily need to be plastic.
Yep.
We'll bring that back to you then.
Thanks.
Okay. I have a question on, in the definitions. Solid waste, can you give us an example of contained gaseous material? I don't think I've heard that phrase before. Page 5.
Contained gaseous material would be like a propane container,
Propane container.
like you use for gas grill.
Okay, okay. So it would not be, for example, a hairspray can? Because technically hairspray is a gaseous material.
Could,
It could.
It could.
Okay, okay. And I
probably
was,
any aerosol,
I beg your
or
pardon?
probably any aerosol.
Any aerosol, okay, thank you. I was also a little concerned about how high the cumulative civil penalties could get, $3,000 in a 12-month period. I was a bit concerned about that.
What section is that?
That is 1323, I believe. It's page 12. Yeah, 1323, D.
Well, that's, okay, but that's, you notice it's $50 and then $200 for each additional. That's just caps it, so if they still haven't done anything, it can't go higher.
I'm sorry, could you speak a little?
It's, the initial violation is $50. The
Right.
second one and each additional one is $200. The $3,000 is just a cap in case they're completely ignoring us. It's not an initial fee. That's the maximum it can be.
Okay, but it says each business day during which the same violation is found to have existed shall constitute a separate offense.
Right, and that's because this is solid waste. It can be a health, safety, welfare
Okay,
issue.
okay.
So it's kind of urgent. They need to jump on it.
Oh, and I don't dispute that at all. I understand how serious that is. I was just concerned about the pricing. Is this standard? Is this industry standard?
It's found in many of our neighboring jurisdictions. That $3,000 is the maximum somebody would be fined in a 12-month period.
Okay, and then that's standard across the localities that you've, okay, thank you. That answers my question.
And that's just assuming, and if we made it like $500, they might just ignore us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially a big apartment complex that, $500 isn't that big of a deal to them.
Okay, okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay. Is there anyone in the public, has anyone signed up to make public comment?
No, ma'am, but do you want to go through the changes that were made as part of the?
That would be good,
So
thank
let's-
you.
Let's go ahead and, so this is a red line comparison between what I sent to Laura for inclusion and then some changes that were made. Some of them were minor. They wanted to define as area rugs instead of just rugs. They had some additional language in here for the construction waste and debris based on their experience. Let's see, then we get down here, refrigerant was not included before, and we had said reusable hard plastic containers. They wanted it to say rigid. And then also we need to make sure the city's agent, which is whoever, we contract with, is included in there as well. Refuse container, we did much the same thing as we did for the recycling container. And then down here for the for yard waste, we just changed some minor stuff, limbs to brush. So a lot of this is minor stuff. And again, refuse containers, we wanted to clarify that, well, first and foremost, we wanted to clarify that people had to use the city's service. Okay, we don't want individual apartment complexes or residents not having to do this. And see, where do we do this here? Scope of service is 1313. This is what it says. Okay, all service users, which is a defined term, shall use. Okay, not that we're just going to provide it. They shall use it. And later on down in this ordinance, we define that a property owner or a property manager or owner of a multifamily apartment complex is also covered by this. Okay, so then we just came down and we just started adding stuff in there associated with some of the other changes we had made to the definitions and also to the requirements for the multifamily as well. So that's where a lot of that stuff is. And you'll notice we changed, instead of service providers, we made it clear that it was the single family and two family service users. I mean, not service providers, service users, because multifamily is distinguished. So a lot of this is just to clarify exactly what's going on. Same changes made here for recycling as were made up there for refuse containers, just to clarify that we'll provide them, but we have only a certain amount of liability. Again, the same thing for the recycling containers. And I think that's about it, right? And the refrigerant stuff again. So it was just to incorporate those changes above into this. Anything else you can think of that we need to clarify?
No, I think we covered
So we would ask that this revised one here, and I can print it out for you if you want, but next week we'll clean this up So this will be the clean version, and all you'll see is changes made that you requested tonight. So we'll send that to you, but I'll send you separately this version so you can just see what it is that we were talking about during this meeting, since you're not voting on it tonight.
The red line?
The red line version,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
So you'll have it before you, because I know we kind of zipped through it rather quickly here. And you don't have to vote on it next week. You can wait another week if you want additional time to.
I would
deliberate.
think that would be wise. We normally wait 2 weeks.
Okay, we
Yeah.
can certainly do that.
Okay, yeah.
So it'll be the May 10th meeting then?
Do we know, is the red line version up on the website with the
Don't
rest of the
think so,
agenda
no.
material?
This was a change to be presented tonight, so
Okay.
we'll put on here for the next meeting, for 2 weeks down the road, we'll put the red line with everything cleaned up.
Okay,
I will send out separately the red line version to you tonight so you can see the changes that were made.
okay.
And then for the next meeting, when you vote on it, it'll be the clean version with just a red line showing the additional
Okay.
changes from tonight.
Because it's helpful for the public to see the red line version.
You
so
want that up on the website too then? Okay.
Please,
Okay.
please. Okay, thank you.
All right.
Any other questions? Okay. Is anyone from the public signed up to make public comment?
Well, signed up, no ma'am.
Okay. Is there anyone who is not signed up but who would still like to make public comment? Okay, seeing no one and hearing no one, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Move. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries.
I'm in between y'all.
Okay, we will vote in 2 weeks. Did I goof something up?
No.
He was just,
He's misbehaving.
kept saying the same thing at the same time, so.
Okay. Okay, no information, no presentations, no consent, unfinished. Moving on to new business. New business is permission for the Village at Manassas Park LLC to commence Phase 2 development and construction work on city-owned land.
Well, this is not the same thing as you just voted on earlier. That's Phase 1A. Now we're talking about Phase 2, which is this area here. So just to get you oriented, this is the current city hall. The new city hall is being built down here, and what you just voted on was that building was being constructed right here. This is not an updated satellite view, obviously. Right now, if you go out there, you'll see a fence is, let me zoom in on this a little bit so you can see what. You'll see if you walk out there now, you'll see a fence runs right along the property line here where this parking lot is, and it kind of wraps around, comes around here, and then there's these parking areas here, so, right here, that have been kind of lopped off. So, you have to come around here as a tight turn. These parking spaces are not available. There's just 2 spaces right here. None of the existing parking inside that fenced area, or any of this parking over here inside the fenced area, or any of City Hall actually inside this fenced area would be impacted. The only thing is that they want to go ahead and do the work up here, which is the 2 parcels that they acquired previously, and then over along here this is part of Parcel 3-2, and this is part of Lot 3-2, this is Lot 2. Dividing line between them goes right here. They need to get on and start doing some work on those properties. So they would do work everything from here up and everything from here over, but they wouldn't touch anything in here. And this is, again, it's part of the comprehensive development agreement, anticipates this. We've already allowed them to go in and do some work. You've seen they've basically taken the stream that was over there between the parcels right along here. It's still shown. They've taken that all underground, and they're slowly starting to fill that in. They need permission to do that to bring it up to grade, because this is going to have residential units on it eventually, as will this over here. So, any questions on that? I know I kind of threw a lot at you there.
Oh, okay. Councilmember Moore, do you have any questions or comments?
No question.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Vice Mayor Banks?
Hey, Dean,
Thank you.
when do they want to begin this construction? Because we have students that walk along the sidewalk to get to school and come home, and it's already they're walking kind of in the street to get around the construction and the fenced sidewalk. So I don't want them to block the entire or more of the sidewalk and have our kids walking in the street.
So here's the actual site plan here. here's the sidewalk, and I think Mickey is online. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mickey, but I believe this here, no, I'm sorry. Let's see, this area here, let's see. Yeah, it looks like this is the sidewalk here.
Mm-hmm.
So there would be some impact to the sidewalk for a portion of the time.
Right.
But that's gonna happen no matter what, unless you're hoping that this won't occur until the summer.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping. I was asking when is the construction going to begin?
Mickey, do you have something to add to that?
I mean, and I think I would defer to Calvin, but typically if a sidewalk has to be cordoned off, that they provide an alternate access for pedestrians.
Okay, Calvin,
certainly.
that is correct.
No, they've tried to put some type of walkway where they've cordoned off areas that pedestrians are supposed to go.
If they can do that, that'd be great. I see it happening a lot in DC or in cities with this, when they do construction on, they have scaffolding and they provide a walkway for people to still walk underneath the scaffolding or even around it.
Well, they might have to cross the street. I mean, right now, we have parking, or sidewalks across the street, so that might be a requirement. I know that the stuff right now with the new city hall, you have to cross the street there.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's what they're gonna plan or not, but that would be something that would be worked out between Calvin, Mickey, and the developer.
Okay.
This year, we're just authorizing them to pull permits and begin construction pursuant to an approved site plan.
Mm-hmm.
But we can bring that to their attention so they're aware of that.
Yeah, if we can, because I'm all for, let's get on schedule and let's not hinder them. But at the same time, I have to think about the residents and also the students and their safety as they like to walk alongside Manassas Drive. And I'm already seeing a problem with the construction and them having to walk in the street. I did that personally. I had to walk in the street, so that's how I know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I've done it too.
We've all walked in the street.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have a follow-up?
No, that's it.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
We'll
Okay.
pass that on to them then.
Okay, if there's no more comments or questions, the recommended motion is that the governing body authorize the Village at Manassas Park LLC to commence work on Phase 2 of the City Center Phase 3 project on city-owned land, excluding the current City Hall building and the paved parking areas around City Hall as delineated by the perimeter fence that has been installed. Do we have a motion?
Moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained?
Aye.
Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay.
Did Darrell oppose or?
No, he was in
Said aye.
favor.
Okay.
Yeah. There's a delay in the microphone.
Okay, I just
That's
want to make
why.
sure he got his vote
Yeah,
correct.
no. Thank you, Dean.
You're welcome.
Okay.
I'll swap
And now
out with Keith.
we move into governing body budget work session.
Good evening, Mayor, members of council. So before I turn over to Lasso for his opening remarks, I do want to mention that we have the registrar here tonight, Patricia, as well as the Commissioner of Revenue, Debbie, to answer any questions you may have. We'll do that before we roll into the departmental presentations. With that being said, Lasso, I'll turn it over to you.
Can you all hear me? Yes? Okay, good. Nothing to add tonight from the budget perspective, but per the previous agenda item related to the downtown, I just wanted to share with the public and the governing body that we do have the Cinema Cafe's agreement and their signature on the agreement to come to our city, and that will be coming to the governing body via public hearing sometime in May is our goal. I just wanted to add that for context for tonight, and I will turn it over to you all to see if you have any questions for the constitutional officers.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Laszlo first? Okay. Councilmember Moore, do you have any questions or comments for Laszlo?
No questions at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
One quick question.
Madam Mayor.
Oh, a quick question from Councilmember Hampton.
Laszlo, I just wanted to confirm you need our questions by the end of this week, right?
I do, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay, I think that does it for us, Laszlo. We can proceed. Yeah, thank you.
Did you guys have any questions for either the registrar or the Commissioner of Revenue?
I did.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me go look at my notes. Trish, I had a quick question. And it was regarding the expense for language. And it was $20K in June. Will that carry us over to the election year as well? I mean, the November election?
Yes.
Okay,
You were not going to start using it until July,
okay,
when we move to the new facilities. So,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Who administers the tax relief for the elderly and disabled for the real estate tax?
Debbie has her hand up.
Okay, I was wondering, the net worth of 150,000 has, I think it needs to be updated because of inflation and just over the years people make up, it's made more. What are your thoughts on increasing that?
Make more, that's not included, that net worth is like how much you have in your checking account, savings account,
Okay.
and retirement or some, and it does not include your Manassas Park house.
Okay. So, but I think, I'm wondering, when has that number been, has it been updated? How long is
It was
that?
100,000, but it's been probably 4 or 5 years that we updated the income from 40,000 to 50,000 for full relief.
Mm-hmm.
And then we updated the net worth from 100,000 to 150,000.
Okay. All right. I was just wondering, just finding when it's been updated.
I don't have too many that are over that amount, that are just like a little bit over.
Mm-hmm.
When I've had people apply and they're over, it's usually like 300,000 or 400,000.
It's a large difference.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Councilmember Moore, do you have any questions for the constitutional officers or for the registrar?
No, not at this time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Proceed.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up the DSS presentation.
Not gonna know how to play.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Good evening. I'm Randy Nice, the DSS director. Thank you for allowing me to be here this evening to present an update on social services. I did want to first include a updated org chart. Thanks again for approving our much needed positions. As you can see that we now are up to 22 staff when we are fully staffed. We have 20 full-time staff and 2 part-time staff. So you can see we added 1 additional benefits program specialist 1, an additional family services specialist 1, and that box also includes the filling of the CSA family services specialist, partially using the Arpa funding. And I think it's been a while since you've seen a lot of us. I'm so proud of this group of people. I think it's a good reflection of our community and our residents. I have such a diverse staff, except for our one lone Kofi Janfi, our admin manager, that we appreciate so much. But yeah, it's hard to get everybody together these days to take a photo, so we opted for individual shots. And I commented to some of my staff how some of them chose to use Photoshop, and make themselves look a little glamorized. It was interesting to see who did that. So we had fun with this. Some highlights that I wanted to point out, just from our wrapping up of our fiscal year 22 and entering into fiscal year 23. We're still in the middle of the pandemic and ensuring that we keep residents safe and serviced with SNAP and Medicaid benefits as needed. You're well aware that we did have a significant surge in our foster care caseload. We were averaging about 6 and hopped up to around 21 youth. And we've also seen a significant surge in our SNAP and our Medicaid caseloads, which later on you'll see future plans of needing the additional admin staff and the HSAs to support the growth of those programs. We did receive our Kia Carnival minivan. Isn't it sharp looking? It's black and stealth, and we have a really great time. Some of the staff, I'm not gonna lie, are hesitant to drive. It has all the bells and whistles, so the steering wheel shakes if you get out of the lane and it beeps at you. So believe it or not, some of the staff are actually, when they're solo, driving the old Crown Vic that we have. So kind of funny, right?
Looks like it might be hard to park.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
big. Yeah.
Well, and it beeps at you, you know, it tells you like you're getting too close, and it has the monitor, so it's really, it was
That's good.
definitely a morale booster. I have an update here. We did actually receive one of the other vehicles. It is a Kia Forte, am I saying that right? And not a Hyundai Elantra like we thought. It's over at the garage wrapping up its new entry to be a new city car, so I expect that any day now. I did let staff know, and they said that's great because our last Honda is on its last leg. So I'm really excited that we received the new vehicles. Very helpful with the increase in the youth that we've had this last year and a half. And then lastly, I wanted to point out, this is new. Just in the last 30 days, we've been able to push forward with adoptions for 4 of our youth. That includes 2 families, so a youth sibling group of 3, and then another sibling. So we're really excited. Of course, the goal is always to, you know, reunify, but when that can't happen, we love for the children to be adopted by the families that have fostered them, and in this case, that's how that is.
Wow.
They were families that fostered and decided to adopt. Let's see here, moving on to our administrative unit. As I mentioned, we're seeing a real big increase in this area, so pointing out that they're a vital link between the residents and the services we provide. I always say that. That's always going to be our face of our department, and what they do is really important. But we have seen how the increases in the caseload sizes and the workload from CPS and SNAP and Medicaid are impacting our admin unit and our HSAs. Just some new tasks that we're responsible for doing. We're also working on a succession plan with them. You know, I've been with the agency for almost 16 years. Kofi just had his 5-year mark. So we're just wanting to make sure that the knowledge that he and I have of how the operations work administratively are starting to trickle down to our admin staff, showing them how to use Thomas Brothers, which is the accounting system for the state that has to be uploaded into Laser to get paid. Processing payroll, purchase orders, all of that. So we've been doing a really good job at taking opportunity of the lobby opening later. If you recall, we did a presentation and got approved. That's when we do a lot of these trainings where we don't have interruptions from staff and residents coming into the lobby, and then we're literally pulling up slides over the Zoom or sometimes in the building and teaching our admin staff how to perform these operations if Kofi and I were unavailable. This next slide here shows an increase in our data for admin. I want to point out though that we just used the 9-month period because the fiscal year 22 is not completely over yet, and if we would have annualized, the numbers would have been very offset. But you can see that it's a flip-flop between our lobby visits and our calls, but if you do the math, you're still seeing that we're seeing an increase in our walk-ins and our applications. Well, a decrease in calls by the 5%, but residents have started to come back to the building too, so. The only other thing I want to point out on this slide that I think we need to start capturing is our transfer-ins. We've also seen a real big spike on that. Richmond has what's called CPU, where applications are received in Richmond. They begin the initial process and then they transfer to the locality. So we've seen a real spike in those applications. In essence, they're a new application to us. So I'm going to start adding that into our calculations so we can start taking a look at that data too. Moving on to our benefits unit. As you recall, they're responsible for SNAP, TANF, Medicaid, energy assistance, VIEW, fraud. our Title IV program, which piggybacks with our services side for our foster youth. We've seen a huge increase in applications as a result of COVID. And again, a Title IV surge because of the foster care caseload. Here you can see the increase in our caseloads. Our year-to-date for the SNAP is an 8% increase, and the Medicaid is 14% increase. We have just recently been notified that the public health emergency is ending, finally. Like, we kept getting notified and it was pushed back. So right now the target date is mid-July. They have sent out just today a tentative roundtable meeting statewide to start discussing what that process will look like. It's scary. I'm not sure, what it's going to entail. I'm not even sure that the state truly knows how it's going to work, how we're going to cycle in, people that have had renewals due, that haven't been processed, that may not be eligible any longer because we're doing redetermination. So we're just hoping that, we're going to weather this storm just like we did through COVID, and trust that the state will hopefully maybe give some funding to the localities to help, whether it be overtime for staff to work additional hours, or always additional funding for staff to be hired. Moving on to the services unit, as you're well aware, their adoption, APS, AS, childcare, CPS, the Children's Services Act, the guardianship fees, foster care, Title IV, resource families, and UAI.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thank you.
A busy group of individuals. Here again, you can see the increases in the number of intakes, the CPS referrals, the guardianships. Again, the fiscal year isn't fully over, so we just utilize the data from the 9 months of fiscal year 21 and the 9 months of fiscal year 22 to be able to have a more realistic percentage of the increases. And thankfully, we haven't seen a change in CSA. That's staying pretty consistent, which is a good thing. If you recall, that budget line has a very large local commitment, and that is the funding source for our at-risk youth. And also you can see on this slide the jump in our foster care cases, of course. The numbers for the foster care duplicated here in that 4 of those youth that are listed here have just recently been adopted. So you'll see that when the process is finalized that our foster care numbers will drop by the 4, and I'll start adding them to an adopted number so we can kind of keep comparison of that track record as well.
Oh, Randy, is that 18 for the CSA, is that the same because it's the same kids?
It is, yeah. So many of the kids for that program are IEP driven, so that's the referrals from the schools. So many times the youth come in as kindergartners, receive the services. They may have autism, Asperger's, behavioral issues that need to take them outside of the school for additional help. So they come in as kindergartners and they stay with us. I believe they're eligible to 21, I believe it is, for that group to stay in school. So yeah, same group of kids.
Okay, thanks.
I did want to touch a little bit on our Arpa lines for fiscal year 23. This is what we're going to have at our usage come July 1st. Again, pushing the burial assistance. We still are, in a pandemic, and there still are people becoming ill. So, letting the residents know that if they're impacted by that, to contact social services. We are utilizing all of those lines currently, and when we present our closeout for fiscal year 22, we'll have updated numbers for those.
Really quick question.
Sure.
Are we trending towards the 20K for burial and food support, or are we trending past it?
We've not utilized any of it yet.
Really?
Yeah. Still.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah. Interesting.
Burials are downright expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yep. So just going on to fiscal year '23 and beyond, what our departmental staffing needs are going to be going forward, just to make sure that we can administratively keep up with the increase in all the benefit areas. This would be the next level of staff addition that we would be looking at, that we'll be working towards eventually. May not be fiscal year '23, but this is our go-to plan. You can see that we already have our part-time HSAs, and they're so vital to their units. They're bilingual. They do a lot of our translations for us. On the services side, they actually go out into the field, which is a lot better than having to use a language line when you're out in the field. Those conversations with residents are already difficult enough, and then to have to, use the language line translator as opposed to a real person does make a difference. And both of our units have part-time HSAs, and they do a lot of the entry-level determination for benefits. So having them in the office for the additional hours would be a huge help. And the difference in the salaries from what they're earning now to what it would be at full-time is $15,700 for each staff. And then the full-time admin assistant, that would be a new position altogether. And then just always pointing out that DSS is unique and that we do have the ability to submit our positions for reimbursement, and that the state allocates new budgets based on previous year's spending. So our goal would to be able to find $45,882.60 in our future budgets to be able to get those additional positions. The state budget has not been finalized yet. It's still being proposed, but some highlights is the 5% increase for local staff. They provided that last year as well. You can see here the city is meeting the match requirement with the Arpa funded pay raises, and only one employee is under 5% pay raise but above the 4%. The increase would come at 4% in July, and then December the remaining 1% would be added in to the COLA, and it does require the local match. And if the locality decides not to utilize that funding for its intended COLA increase, then we're not awarded the funding. And the second bullet here, that budget line 849 continues to have no local match, so that's fantastic. And that line item will also include the 5% local salary increase. And again, no local match again, which is fantastic. That's the line item that they told us, gosh, probably 4 fiscal years ago now that was going to be wrapped up. So that's a nice treat that we continue to see that, to have no local match. And on the flip side, budget line 847, that's the state line where they provided us additional service staff money. They are rolling that into 855. That's where we hired Emma Gonzalez as one of our new FSs. And that will be rolled in. All right, and then lastly here, just wrapping things up of some accomplishments we've had. Some of it I've already mentioned. Continuing to keep kids safe despite increases across the board. We were able to hire an additional full-time family services specialist and an additional one that acts as our CSA coordinator. And right now we are, actually Monday, Angie Tobar, I believe is how you say her name, started with us as the new benefits program specialist. And we had a vacancy, so we had a internal applicant that was selected, and she's also a Manassas Park resident, so it's really, really, really special. They both started yesterday in the new roles. And as far as the family services specialist, Ms. Prescott, the family services supervisor, and I have the pleasure of 19 interviews this week for that position. So we're very hopeful that we'll be able to fill that position pretty quickly as well. Let's see here. Oh, and our resource families, that's huge too. We're really excited to be able to get back into the community. We're participating in the Health and Wellness Fair that's going to take place on May 12th, I believe it is, at the schools. And we're excited to get all of our goodies out and our sign-up board and our information to try to track our own local Manassas Park foster families. This past year, we were able to increase that number by 2. So we now have 7 local Manassas Park foster families. We've never had that many at all. That's actually the presentation I gave when I wanted to become the Director of Social Services, to have a goal for DSS to have our own local foster families. Not only is it a huge cost saving, but it's just great to be able to keep the youth right here in our community. So that one's close to my heart. So that's great. And I hope that we can continue to, spread the word that that's just a great opportunity.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And I think I totally forgot the month of April, so you all have a pen. Councilmember Moore, I did leave you one, but it appears that somebody swiped it already.
No, it's in his box.
Oh, it's in your box.
I want my pen.
I owe you for
It's
people,
in
so.
your box. Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Are you
Yeah,
done?
yes, yeah.
Oh,
Any
okay.
questions
That was,
that you have?
thank you, Randy. That was a wonderful
Thank you.
presentation.
Thank you.
Let's start with Councilmember Moore. Do you have any comments or questions?
I just want to thank Randy for the excellent service of the presentation tonight. I'm glad to hear that we have 7 foster families and more staff are coming on board. So that's exciting to me, and just thank you for your help.
Thank you. It's exciting for us as well.
Comments or questions?
Oh,
Vice
just
Mayor Banks?
congrats again on getting the 7 foster families in Manassas Park. I know from working with foster kids that it's important to be in the community, because it's when they're outside, they have to make new friends and new environment.
Absolutely.
It's hard enough being a foster kid. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
My question is, slide 7, you showed an increase of benefits from last year to this year, and that's TANF, SNAP, as well as the Medicaid.
Yes.
I mean, do you see our, recipients of these benefits eventually getting off, or transitioning off? Or they're staying on these benefit programs?
Well, all of these programs are eligibility based, which means you could no longer be eligible based on an income. So could you get, benefits now, which are supplemental services, and better yourself and come off of the benefits? Yes. However, with Medicaid, a lot of the new changes that have come about, I think that number is going to stay high. If you recall, a few years ago, we had Medicaid expansion, which covered the group from 19 to 64-year-olds. Now we have Medicaid coverage, dental. Used to be just for children. Now it's for everybody. Dental is the leeway to many health issues, and I think Medicaid realized that if you take care of your teeth, when you're young, your heart rate is better when you're an adult and whatnot. So I think that there's a lot of Medicaid programs that if individuals are eligible, they will get it. I would get it. You could use it as a secondary insurance, right? If you have kids that have dental needs and you have your primary insurance from your job, but then you're also eligible for Medicaid as a secondary, I mean, it's there to support, it's there to supplement. SNAP benefits, I don't see that going down at all either, and I think that's because of the pandemic. Yeah, I do. I think until we get out of the hardship that people are in right now, that supplemental income, unless they're found ineligible based on their income or their family size or they've moved, it's going to be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Questions, comments? Yes.
Oh, I just got a question about the benefits unit. Are they seeing a lot of fraud cases? And what would be an example of a fraud case?
Example of a fraud case would be having benefits in Manassas Park, but residing in Florida and not notifying the benefits worker in Manassas Park that you've moved and you continue to utilize those benefits in Florida. That's a real example that popped right into my head.
Yeah.
Medicaid, And SNAP benefits can be used if you're, you know, that's what you're entitled to, right? That's your supplemental food. So if you leave the area for a vacation or you're visiting somebody, it's not illegal to use those benefits out of the state. But to move and to no longer reside in the locality where your benefits were issued, that's fraud. Not reporting a job. If you had no income and now you have income, that would be an example of fraud. Right now, I'm going to say that I'm sure fraud is there. However, with the restrictions from the health emergency, we're unable to do redeterminations and recertifications. So we're only getting information if it's brought to our attention. And for Medicaid, it's really only if you move out of state or if someone requests it in writing to be closed or if you're deceased. Those are the only ways right now to close the Medicaid until the emergency restrictions are lifted. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of fraud, is my guess.
Interesting.
Do you have a follow-up?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much, Randy. I can remember when you gave your foster care family presentation when you were applying for the position.
Does that
And
mean I'm older or you're older? Or we're just
We're
great?
we're both older.
Okay.
Okay. But it was a dream then, and it's turned out beautifully.
Thank you. I appreciate
Success,
that.
yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Right there. And not only am I representing the Community Services Department, but we have our Community Services staff on remote as well if you have any more granular details and questions. But I will start by saying good evening, Mayor, members of the governing body. My name is Chris Himes, the Assistant City Manager, and the kind of overall Department of Community Services
Welcome.
Director. So
Yeah.
one of the other collateral billets here under my job, my new job title. So I'm proud to present the, I guess, inaugural community services budget. We'll just kind of go ahead and get into it, but just kind of the past few months, if you can think of it, last quarter really, when we've been fully staffed, has been really building everything from the ground up. You know, we don't have a precedent in the city for any of these services, and we've been working a lot, not only as a core staff, but all of our new kind of, I would call them divisional leaders here across the board have been really working hard and networking out and finding resources across the community to build that kind of network of resources for staff. I'm sorry.
Do you have a printout of this?
I do not have a printout of it.
Okay,
But we
okay.
can get one to you if you need it.
Okay, can you email it to us then?
Yes.
Afterwards, okay, thank you.
Oh, sure, no problem. So I won't go into the entire kind of mission statement and across the divisions there, but one thing you will notice if you do read through it is just the commonality of the the like services and the like mission statements across the board there. So we do not only a lot of, you know, just focusing solely on your program area, but we do a lot of cross-divisional kind of programs as well, and you've seen that now and bleeding into some of our future events that we're going to be hosting in the city. It's health and wellness, it's economic and health fair, those types of things, and you'll see more of that as we continue to build out our programs. So kind of a really basic overview and organizational chart, obviously a massive department. So myself just kind of organizing and structuring more of the administrative, functionalities of the division. And of course, we have our individual newly hired kind of through the Arpa program coordinators across the board for each individual functional area. Wow, having a tough time talking tonight. So just wanted to give a highlights. You know, we are tracking numbers across the board per departmental or divisional area right now, but we're going to hold on getting that until we have a full year's worth of information to really show trends of how it's happening and what's going on in our city per individual area. But kind of the core thing that we're doing as a department is community outreach and engagement. You know, we need to kind of break down some of the barriers, which right now is just the unknowns that we have these resources available for our residents, and this is how you can get access to what you need to improve whatever condition you might need to address, whether that be your mental public health, your economic health, or your housing status as well in the city. We're very pleased to show that we have two kind of like I said, divisional fairs coming up here in the early part of the summer and mid part of the summer, as well as you've already been briefed on the economic recovery voucher program, pretty much ad nauseum to this point, so I'm pretty sure you're well familiar with what that programmatic goal is going to be for that. But the Health and Wellness Fair will be the first one kicking off on May 12th. That's mostly going to be particularly focused on mental health, with some, as Randy had mentioned, some other presence there from our other departments. That's another one we're also going to try to really emphasize, is it's not just our divisions and programs, but we're other departments within the city, as well as our nonprofit community and private community as well, to have as many tables as possible just to get information out to the masses. And these are the best types of events to have, is just kind of an open fair where people can come in and just kind of peruse, table to table and get information as needed in a kind of fun, kind of open setting as well. Same thing goes for the Housing and Economic Wellness Fair. These are kind of two preliminary events. These are just the initial ones. We plan to have more, but the goal will be to have the first ones, do some after-action type reports, understand what works well, what doesn't work well, and then really start organizing a more managed calendar over the entire rest of the year, fiscal year, and into the calendar year. And this is, of course, organized not only from our initial kind of sit-downs and meetings as a division and staff, but also with the community, our events committee as well across the city, so we kind of understand what we can and cannot do. And also, we will have presence not only at the events that we're sponsoring, but also other city events as well. So National Night Out or July 4th type events, you name it, Trunk or Treat, some of those kind of already successful programs. We plan to have a presence there. The goal is just to embed this, to make sure that there's no stigma against it. We're always going to be out there. So these are just kind of some of the samples that we have in terms of banners and marketing kind of outreach. These are all over social media. Flyers we hand out. We go into a lot of our kind of just local communities, so outreach across the kind of the mediating structures in the city, so at churches and other kind of community events. We've been really kind of grassroots, I guess is the best way to put it, in terms of just getting the word about different types of events that we have in the city, and programs as well, not just big events, but just reoccurring programs. As you can see in the bottom left-hand corner, like example would be our Mental Health Monthly. That's where our mental health program coordinator, Sally, she embeds with a library and does some after-hours programs at the transitional library, and we'll continue to provide that in our new library as well.
Does Sally work with the schools as well?
Everybody has had a lot of engagement with schools. They've been along for the ride. In fact, they're the big reason that we're using their facilities for a lot of our wellness programs and having presence there as well. So they've been a really, really great partner along for the ride with this as well. And that's not just with Sally's, and that's with our economic, with our housing, you name it, across the board, because chances are there's some overlap between those programs. So if you see our budget, the ones that are kind of across the board with an expenditure category, this is our ARPA funded budget. You've mostly been privy to what we're looking at in terms of sponsoring and funding those kind of larger level programs and campaigns to improve different ARPA kind of areas and priorities in the city. And then also just kind of administrative type back-end support. This is to allow our administrators to be able to continually kind of do some of those back-end kind of planning around holding events, holding different types of marketing type campaigns and stuff like that needed to get community engagement across the board. So we modeled this very similarly to a lot of our other administrative needs for other department staffs. And then we also have a second line item. These are kind of what we call the non-ARPA, but still required for some of our staff, so like professional services. This would be for things that aren't necessarily an ARPA initiative, but allow us to kind of continue kind of attacking some of those long-term strategic priorities for the city. So we wanted to get some of funding in there for those kind of other priorities and goals for our staff to be able to execute, not just specifically focusing on ARPA, although that is our #1 priority right now. And that's good. We look forward to having a more robust, metric-driven, data-driven report But we'll save that for when everybody is, wanting to hear me down the road here. So one of those biannual type reports and manager reports. But I will leave it up for the group, and we have our staff on hand if you have any more questions. So I'll
Okay,
leave.
thank you. That was great, Chris. Thank you. Questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
I know that you're going to give us metrics a little bit later, but while we're making this budget decision, could we see some metrics that we have so far to date?
Oh, absolutely, and we can even name some off the top of the mind right now, but in terms of calls for service, in terms of people coming in and asking housing-related issues, or people coming in and actually having like counseling for different mental health services, we can get those to you pretty quickly.
Yes, please.
Yep.
Thank you. Yes, Vice Mayor Banks?
Thanks for the presentation, Chris. I think that this is exciting because it's kind of, we're on the forefront of changing the social contract between our citizens and government, and our relationship between the two, and providing these housing services and also the mental health services. So I think this is exciting times, and it's great to see this grow.
Comments or questions? Yes.
Yeah, your line item for the events, it was like 10,000 or something like that. Was that going to be used for? I mean, is that to?
I'm sorry, which?
Oh, 7, very last one right there.
Oh, so
I mean, what would the city be buying, I guess, with that money?
And do I have Lamar on? I know he's in Vegas right now with the city manager. I don't know if he's on right now.
Well, he's not on.
So the goal was to have almost like a Chamber of Commerce type style approach towards just engaging with the business community overall. So, there's some support required behind that. But definitely having like awards type functions and ceremonies, just you name it across the board, and not just having like one a year or something, but having multiple ones in different types of categories across the board too. So this is our initial funded investment to see if this number even makes sense. It might end up being lower than that, but we're going to try, and this is our kind of programmatic initiative behind it.
I see. Okay.
Follow up?
No, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Moore, comments, questions?
No, I just want to thank Chris for the presentation. As it's been stated, it's very exciting, the services that we're providing our community. So thank you for the presentation.
Thank you.
I had one more question.
Yes. Go ahead.
Speaking of mental health, is there a way that, I guess, the people could be anonymous and not be known, or they can meet with our mental health coordinator? And because we've come across, I know all of us, we engage with citizens, and sometimes they do have mental health issues. And so I would like to say, hey, we've got a coordinator or someone you can talk to, but I don't want them to be public and be known that they're talking to that person.
Correct, and that's definitely part of the stigma. Sally, did you hear that question if you're on?
Hi, good evening. Yes, I did. And absolutely, I 100% agree. The primary goal here is confidentiality. So currently what we have offered for residents is there's a confidential form that they can fill out off of our website, and that gets submitted directly to me through an encrypted email. Recently, we've also had police officers that have been handing out my cards to individuals that could perhaps use a consultation, and they've just been calling me directly. And I don't necessarily need specific demographic information from them or anything to help them find resources. So for them, it stays very confidential.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you.
I got a follow-up question, and it piggybacks on Hasib's question about the events, the 10K for the events. Could we get some information on what the return on investment would be, the benefits of that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'll get the kind of roll-up of not only what the events kind of planned are, but also what the anticipated return is. And I mean, I'll preliminarily throw it out. A lot of it is on gaining leads and information of different types of kind of what's happening within our business community and understanding what is actually happening. And that's part of just that networking aspect of it. So it's like kind of trying to convert a network into actual results. So there is a little bit of subjectivity involved with it, but we'll definitely try to convert that into a more
And I realize there's
hard, granular number as well.
I realize there's soft benefits to it, but I just want to know what those are. There's what I think they are, but I want to hear what you all think that.
Absolutely.
Well, I think he was also talking about some type of a citywide app. That's what I was wondering if those funds would be going towards that or something to attract the businesses too, or, I mean.
Correct, yeah, we do have some kind of preliminary feelers out there in terms of harnessing some kind of just other vendors out there to provide kind of a common marketing tool that they can utilize there. But that necessarily wouldn't even be at cost. That is just more of a vessel that those businesses would enter into with that vendor to provide just promotional capabilities for their business, and then that is just between the business and that particular customer in terms of the actual transaction that occurs. The city has no kind of contractual kind of like commitment monetarily for that.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you very much, Chris.
Thank you.
I believe Tony's trying to get a copy of the presentation for everyone, but I'll go ahead and get started because I've already been warned. Thank you, Mayor Rischel, Vice Mayor Banks, members of council, citizen staff, and guests. I'm Calvin Odell, the Director of Community Development. Here to present our FY23 budget sort of summary, less numbers, more of just where we stand as a department. Layout of the presentation, we'll start with a review of department structure, review of the scope of services, and then fund budget reviews and general comments, and then brief discussion of key goals. Again, we are the Department of Community Development, but we also contain the Department of Public Works. The public is very familiar with the term public works, so we sort of keep it on there, and especially when we're reaching out to the public, we use the term public works because they're very familiar and comfortable with it. This is our department structure. I know it's very difficult to read the names and positions. I'll just point out the key structural changes. We have, of course, added administrative assistant underneath of Laura Kogenauer, who you spoke with this evening. And we also added a administrative assistant to Mickey Berry, our planning and zoning administrator.
Thank you.
You can see from the chart, we still have numerous vacancies. We're struggling to fill, especially on the infrastructure division side of things. But we also have several positions throughout the chart that are open. As you can see underneath the director, directly under my charge, there are a series of managers, of which for this past fiscal year and the coming fiscal years, we've added a transportation program manager. So there's a series of division managers, with transportation program manager being the newest. Total in this org chart, 37 FTEs, but 4 positions remain frozen for FY23, so that gives us a 33 FTE potential going into FY23. This is a chart that I've shown year after year. The black line is indicative of the population. These are 2 separate axes. So you have on the left a personnel FTE axis, and then on the right, the actual population of the city axes. So you can see that back in 2007, we were actually 2.95 FTEs per thousand for the functions that this department performs. 2.9 FTEs per thousand city population. And as the budget struggled in the city, our FTEs declined as the population was booming. And we have started to rebuild our FTEs as a department for these functions that are represented. And here we are today, but we're still only at 1.9 FTEs per thousand. Comparatively, to be back where we were at FTEs per thousand, we would have to have 51 employees doing these functions to have the same 2.95 ratio that we were at. Department scope. Start with Transportation Program Manager Steve Hall. He is the newest member of the team, or the newest addition to our org chart. Steve is charged with handling short and long-term transportation planning, capital program management, roads, trails, etc. Project management, report studies and designs, and then street condition assessment, data analysis, pavement reconditioning coordination, grant writing and administration, which has kept Steve very busy, and regional and state committee membership. Key goals that he's laid out, we've laid out with Laszlo cooperatively, maximize transportation grant potential. This is an area where you'll see later on some data we've really excelled, really picked up the pace of our grant applications and really started participating in a lot of grant programs where previously we did not have the time to accomplish those goals. Improve transportation planning and long-term goals, improve project delivery and budgeting, strategic planning for pavement evaluation and resurfacing operations, and urban maintenance funds expenditure planning, tracking, and reporting. Continued evaluation and implementation of multimodal transportation alternatives. This is huge here in the downtown, trying to make sure that we're providing multimodal options for our residents and even people from out of the city who want to come and utilize the VRE. Continued study and implementation of speed reduction, pedestrian safety, and parking improvements. An active participation in regional and state transportation groups. This was one area that was really difficult without dedicated transportation staff because you have so many meetings, so many deadlines. How do you find time to join all these transportation committees and meetings? And resident portal, getting complaints. We have several different ways that residents can make complaints. You can do it directly through website, email. You can do it through our Asset Essentials program. And even once in a while, we'll get them actually through the SmartGov code enforcement complaint section. So people are definitely finding ways to reach out to us and reach Steve.
Through the governing body.
Yes, through the governing body. This is our Public Works Division. As you can see, Alan Rowley is our engineering services supervisor. We really break this out into the utilities groups that work directly under the superintendent, and then the site and stormwater division. The site and stormwater division, of course, handles all of the stormwater, erosion and sediment control inspections, as well as all the infrastructure inspections on new site construction. And then water, sewer, streets are the utilities divisions underneath the superintendent. So we do water utility infrastructure management, sewer utility infrastructure management, stormwater utility infrastructure management, street and public right-of-way maintenance, site development inspections, stormwater permit management, and our recruitment update. I know everybody's curious about this because we had some discussions about this fall leading into January, where we decided to be more competitive with our neighbors. We actually increased our minimum pay to $19 an hour. Since that time, we received 17 applications early in 2022, scheduled numerous interviews, made 3 offers, but unfortunately no one accepted the offers at $19 an hour, so we've continued the interview process.
Quick question. Can you go back to that slide, please? How many applications had you received the previous year?
Oh, we've always kept a steady stream. We keep jobs, especially the crewman one, just remains posted on the city website. So we continuously get applications. Usually we're looking for some sort of experience in either construction or in utilities. So whenever we see an application that has any sort of relevant experience, we jump on it, schedule an interview. You know, when we are going into the winter, we'll interview just about anyone because we need bodies to operate trucks. This winter was probably one of the most frightening moments I can remember, you know, going into a snowstorm with literally 8 to 9 guys, wound up with 8 guys for one snowstorm. That was a very intimidating thing to have happen. I couldn't even tell you that we could run 2 full shifts So we looked into contract services and even hired a couple part-time guys just to come in and who had plow experiences that could jump into a truck and take off. But we made it through. It was a very difficult winter. We had more snow than we had had in previous years, and we were probably as low staffed as we've ever been. Yeah, especially going into the winter, we know what that means. Nothing but water breaks and nothing but snow. And we get very nervous, so we start interviewing people that we don't necessarily feel their applications are the highest quality. But right now, we're hoping that with the increased pay, we can find qualified people that can jump right in and join the team.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. Can you remind me what the per hour is for our neighboring jurisdictions?
So Manassas has been starting people at $19 an hour. I believe they still advertise slightly lower, but we've been in communication with them. They've been starting everyone at $19 an hour. I just think right now everybody's having troubles recruiting. It's not just the Public Works Division that's having troubles recruiting right now too. I mean, we're just having trouble across the board getting people to work, and especially work for lower pay. So it's a challenge. I hope it gets better.
Yeah. The hiring issue, it's just all industries.
Yeah, I think it's
all
across the
industries.
Okay, before you go on that next slide too, the crew one, we're recruiting for crew one position.
Yeah, I have
Right.
a couple crewman 1s, a crewman 2, and a crewman 3.
So on the
All
previous
available.
slide, then, should we not mark it as vacant instead of frozen? If we just unfrozen those positions?
The frozen positions are actually positions that we actually have frozen as an organization. They're not
Because there were some crew
available.
one positions that were frozen.
Yeah, there
Okay.
are two crewmen 1 frozen, there's a building inspector frozen, and there's also a mechanic frozen. Streets' key goals: to increase pavement patch and repair work citywide, to implement sign installation plan for parking modifications, to coordinate signal improvements, and to complete tracking software implementation to improve reporting and planning. This is one that's taking up quite a bit of mine and Chris's time as we try to work with Asset Essentials folks to improve the way the software functions, especially for the guys in the field. And develop SOPs and improve recruitment and retention strategies. Water and sewer, our key goals on that side. Continued improvement to leak detection and unaccounted for water reduction. This has been a very interesting year. I've said it before, it seems like when we get the system to a certain tightness, as soon as we fix a break, another one pops up, and it's almost like we can only get so tight as a system without some of these phased water system improvements really buttoning up the system. But we have correlators out there and data loggers, and the data loggers run pretty much nonstop. We will be getting more data loggers with the implementation of the AMI system, so that will help cover more ground. Right now, we can data log in one area, and then we have to move them to another area, and then we have to pinpoint with correlators. But we have stayed on top of it. We haven't had too much runaway usage, and it's really it's been impressive to see how well the guys have kept up and how well they've tracked the numbers. And I think at one point this winter we had 4 breaks, and the guys were able to address all 4 of them from 3 o'clock on. They went home at about 2 or 3 in the morning, but 4 breaks in 12 hours they were able to repair. So it was just one of those years.
Matter of fact, your guys were out near my house on Christmas Eve
Yeah.
into Christmas morning.
It's usually Thanksgiving. We went a long time where the guys did not have a Thanksgiving because it was, for some reason, we always had a water break on Thanksgiving, and didn't make any sense. It's not really the heart of water break season yet. Valve replacements, again, we have reduced the scope of that project as a whole. We were able to pinpoint and identify the differences in valves that were installed in the period in which Bloom's Crossing was constructed and Mosby 1 and 2 were constructed. It was actually breaks in front of Mosby that led us to that revelation that not all of the valves are the same type and have the same bolts. So instead of a worst case scenario, we're replacing every valve in Bloom's Crossing. We really think we've got it down to about 50% of the valves need to be replaced. But that is a project that we really need staff to execute unless we're going to hire a contractor, and I'm trying to avoid that because that could be a very expensive venture. So that's another reason we really need recruitment and retention. Lateral investigations for I&I reduction. Pump station improvement planning, that's something that's ongoing. We have been working with our design firms and internal staff to come up with best plans of action on these pump stations for years. And water modeling and connection mapping. We have pretty decent water maps, all things considered, but we do find a lot of errors from time to time. Like when we started building this project, the Park Central in the village found out that our water maps aren't as accurate as we thought they were. So that's an ongoing project. And complete implementation of tracking software. This is something that you'll see across the board until Asset Essentials is actually doing what we need it to do and providing the reporting for LOSLO and the governing body that they deserve. Develop SOPs and improve recruitment and retention strategies. Again, you'll see this across the board in our key goals for all of our divisions. Stormwater. Of course, improve our VSMP program. That's been the goal since 2014, since we got audited, and we have ever since been building a bigger and better stormwater division. We're very fortunate right now to have Wayne and Bud, who are both proving to be very capable and qualified stormwater professionals. So that's very exciting. And not only our VSMP program, but our site inspections have gotten so much better over the past few years. Escalating enforcement actions per DEQ guidance. That is something every time we send somebody a notice of violation, DEQ doesn't want to see a second notice of violation. They want to see escalating enforcement actions, and they repeated that to us time and time again. So we are looking into the ordinance to see where we can actually improve how escalating enforcement actions work in the city. Continue to raise the bar on site inspections, quality, and documentation. Again, we're doing so much better than we ever have, but we're going to continue to raise the bar because everything that the contractor puts, well, not everything, but most everything that the contractor puts in the ground eventually becomes ours to maintain. So that's one area where you want to be as stringent and stiff as possible. Pond maintenance and improvements. We get a lot of concerned residents calling in about mowing ponds. I would not say this is so much about pond mowing. We don't always agree with residents that ponds should look like a manicured lawn, but we certainly have a lot of work to do to recondition aging ponds, get them back to their original design capacity, and make sure that they are functioning the way they're intended to, draining down at the proper intervals, and not holding water if they should not be. Capital improvements in the Connor Center. As you know, you're very familiar with the corrugated metal pipe issue that haunts different portions of the city, but especially the Connor Center. And then complete implementation of tracking software. Again, this is across the board for all of our public works divisions. Develop SOPs and improve recruitment and retention strategies. Development Services Division. Again, Michelle Berry is, we call her the Development Services Manager. She's also the Planning and Zoning Administrator. But one of the most recent additions to this organizational chart is the Administrative Assistant, absolute lifesaver. Mickey is absolutely overwhelmed with development activity right now, one of the busiest development times many of us have ever seen. And without Irasima there to help, I don't know how we would accomplish this move and everything that we need to accomplish. And the benefits to customer service have been incredible. You know, we now have both Irasima and Miriam in the office at all times to help customers very few times have customers come to the window and not been able to find somebody, not been able to find somebody bilingual. It's just working out spectacularly right now, and I can't say enough about what that position meant for this division. And we do have a building official, Stanley Skinner, who will be starting in June. But this development handles planning and zoning, development plan management, which means that once a plan is actually submitted and under review, then someone has to manage all the bond reductions, manage any revision submissions, any specification package changes. Virginia Uniform Statewide Building Code compliance, that's everything underneath of the building official, including, you can sort of work back up the chart to the permit tech. We use a general permit technician here, someone that does building, planning, zoning, dumpsters, right-of-way permit, or dumpsters, apron permits, everything. So I don't put the permit technician necessarily under the building official, but an aspect of that job is actually a technical assistant to the building official. Property code enforcement, that is right now, primarily our code enforcement inspector, working under the direct supervision of Mickey. But again, we are trying to recruit a planner code enforcement, Planner 1 code enforcement inspector for the upcoming year. We had advertised for part-time code enforcement inspectors. We weren't getting a lot of interest, so we're hoping that advertising it as a full-time position will renew interest. And then again, Stanley Skinner, a very experienced building official, will be starting in June. Development services goals, manage substantial workload of new development. It's comes off real easy up there, not so easy to do in real life. Without sacrificing customer service, level of enforcement, and record keeping. That is a real challenge. A lot of paperwork generated from all of this development activity, and not a whole lot of space, not a whole lot of staff to scan everything in and get things squared away to minimize our footprint. But we had to recently purchase a new scanner, and we have been trying to minimize our paper footprint over the past year. Complete implementation of new software. This is a different set of software. This is not Asset Essentials. This is SmartGov. It's already active for code enforcement. We're going live with the building and planning portions of it. There will be a customer portal where people can track their permit activity, track their inspection activity. They can even submit their plans and track the status of their plans online through their customer portal. And this also, as I mentioned earlier, gives people a way to file code enforcement complaints, not through the city's website, but through a separate portal. Continue to digitize archives and incoming submissions in preparation for the move, and then improve code enforcement presence and results in the community. And that's really our current strategy is two-part. Transition to civil penalties, get away from these misdemeanors. We're having issues, with the courts. Judges, attorneys don't like to see us treating property code as criminal, and it, for all the right reasons. They're in there handling cases, violent crimes, grand theft, things like that, domestic abuse, and then all of a sudden somebody pops up because their grass is too tall or they got a car parked in their yard. It doesn't always fare well in the courts. So we're trying to transition to a civil penalty structure, and then recruit additional code enforcement personnel to increase our general presence in the community. The fleet division, again, this is Tommy Young. He is your fleet maintenance supervisor, your fleet manager. There's that frozen mechanic position that was targeted as a large diesel mechanic. We had that position filled at one time many years ago, but diesel mechanics are very hard to retain. They're very in demand, and they get paid a lot of money, so we sort of wind up being a nursery for diesel mechanics, and then they move on to better things. Crew worker 2, Tim Williams. Tim's been with Tommy in the garage for a long time, and they're handling things pretty well for now. Public safety, vehicle maintenance. They do maintain police vehicles and fire apparatus. A lot of the apparatus repairs have to be outsourced just because of the size and the nature of the repair. But they do maintain all of our public safety vehicles, general service vehicles, and then all of the public works and parks and recreation equipment. I keep this picture until the old fleet's actually completely gone. We've had some delays with the Enterprise delivery because of supply chain issues. So I still, especially that white one, I still have to look at it every day off the loading dock. When they're gone, I'll update this picture to a pretty picture of a bunch of new fleet vehicles. But we're going to continue the onboarding of these new Enterprise fleet vehicles. We work with vendors to increase the speed of the fire apparatus repairs. That's been an issue where, we're sort of at the mercy of a third-party workload. As where if, we were doing it in-house, it would be priority number one. They always have a list of repairs, so we're working with vendors, searching new vendors so that we can increase the speed of apparatus repair, get it back on the street as quickly as possible. Continue to improve data input into the tracking software. Fleet is one of the better functioning divisions in the Asset Essentials software. Tommy really had his program together in Manager Plus, and it was pretty easy to transition, minimal cleanup work into Asset Essentials. So I think, both facilities and fleet are pretty happy with where they're at with the Asset Essentials program, unlike the utilities that still need some pretty drastic improvement. This is your facilities division. Kenny Woodson is your facilities manager. We had struggled with retention at the porter position, but Jessica Manassas has come on. She's doing a fantastic job, and recently had a vacancy pop up in the janitor position. So that's an additional vacancy that we're trying to address as quickly as possible. Maintenance of city buildings and grounds, contractual services management, which is a big part of what Kenny does on a day-to-day basis. We have a lot of third-party contracts to do elevator inspections, sprinkler and alarm system inspections, PM service on certain equipment throughout all the city buildings. Janitorial and lighting supply management, energy conservation planning, and capital improvement planning. And the key goals for facilities are continued diligence in the building cleaning and infection control measures. We're still heightened in our cleaning efforts to try to stop the spread. And develop cost-effective interim solutions to capital needs. We have tried to defer as much work as possible to this building, tried to defer as much work as possible to the Public Works building because we intend to replace those facilities. But of course, that presents the need to come up with interim solutions that aren't just wasting money. And improve data entry into the work order software. Again, this is across the board. Continue system audits, energy efficiency audits, and building audits to plan life cycle-based capital investment picture. And build PM schedules for all capital equipment at city facilities. Asset Essentials is a wonderful program in that it allows you to do PM on any asset in the system, so you can schedule PM work orders and things like that. And that is a big goal for Tommy and Kenny, is to get all their PM schedules in that system so that constantly reminded of what is due and when. And continued evaluation of procurement contracts for service vendors. We saved a lot of money when Kenny first came on board and rebid all these contracts. And now we're to the point where we've been watching these contractors work for a year or two, and we know what we like and what we don't like. So we'll probably start putting some contracts back out to bid at this point. Budget review, general fund. General fund, I don't know. That's clearly a mistake. General fund enterprises. The general fund review. This slide here is the dark green line at the top is the total general fund revenues associated with this department. This sort of flat line here is the VDOT urban maintenance. So as you can see, the VDOT urban maintenance funds that we get every year sort of make up the vast majority of our revenues and set sort of the baseline. The green line for total revenues more closely mimics that light blue line, which is your permit revenues. So in general, when permit activity is high and permit revenues are high, that's when our revenues spike up. And then that bottom line is all other revenues that we collect as a department. So really you can see that most of those are also sort of associated with permit activity. They're planning and zoning revenues that pick up when building permit activity picks up. So that is our total revenues, and then our building permit revenues. This slide I wanted to show you basically the permit revenues and the professional services and salary costs. So yes, we've had a wonderful increase in permit revenues, and we've been able to accommodate that increase in permit revenues without a whole lot of salary increase. We've actually decreased in salary payout over the past couple years because we've had vacancies that have gone unfilled for so long. So you can see that as permit revenues rose, we weren't necessarily increasing salary payout to go along with that, but all that work has to be accomplished, all that plan review has to be accomplished, inspections have to be accomplished. So professional services has creeped up in this busy development period, and we'll probably be able to tame that down over the next year or so as plan reviews drop off.
What's professional services?
Professional services for this purpose is essentially paying third parties to review plans
Like
for
Bowman.
the building official, paying third parties to conduct inspections. So when we're overwhelmed and we can't get to somebody, state says we have 45 days to review a set of plans. If we have not provided you with comments within 45 days, your plan is considered approved. We don't ever want to get into that position. So if we're not going to be able to get to you within 45 days, we're going to send it out to a third party to review.
So it's surge support.
Yeah, the building code also says that I have to conduct an inspection that's requested within 48 hours. So if we have one inspector and we have 30 requests for inspection, I'm going to have third-party inspection assistance to meet that demand. I can't just tell people I can't get to you until next week.
Is
That's
there
not an
a
option.
trade-off when we use professional services versus doing it in-house?
I don't like to think
In quality?
So. We're pretty picky about the plans that we will send out. If it's small, especially residential improvements, we do it in-house. If it's a very large commercial job, should I be reviewing that whole plan, or is it better off in the hands of a series of professionals who each specialize in the individual trades they're looking at? A lot of times, like with our city hall building, with the mid-rise apartments, I'm much more comfortable having a team of engineers look at those plans and comment on them, rather than myself and Rick combined try to look at a set of plans. Do I think there's a reduction in quality? No, I think quite the opposite. For the types of plans we're sending out, I think we get better plan review sending them out. It's just not always affordable.
Okay.
It can be quite expensive to have a team of engineers review your building plan. So,
Yeah, thank you.
general fund revenues, general comments. As we spoke of earlier, the VDOT urban maintenance funds continue to set the substantial baseline for general fund revenues related to this department. Building permits are anticipated to represent 30% of this revenue next year. Generally we live around 10 to 15%. So we're in a heightened state of permits and development. So actually building permits will represent about 30% of our total revenues next year. Permit revenues are anticipated to remain elevated beyond normal through 25. We do need to take a look at our fees. It's been a few years since we increased our building permit fees, and with the rate of inflation, we definitely need to look at what we're charging to try to make that, try to bring that line up a little more, take advantage of this busy development period, cover the cost of bringing in a new building official. Site development permit revenues will come in significant waves. That's very true. You might go 2 years without a site development permit, and then all of a sudden you issue one and the fees are substantial. So that will just continue to come in waves until downtown development slows. Commercial tenant interest could drive permit revenues even higher. All of the calculations that Laszlo and I do at budget time are based on what we already know is sort of promised to be built. What we don't know is how many tenant build-outs we'll get when interest peaks in this downtown. So if we start seeing interest in Park 170, or we start seeing interest in the spaces at the bottom of City Hall or Building C, those will be funds that we have not anticipated yet, revenues that we have not anticipated. So good chance that our permit revenues could get even higher than we're predicting. Another transportation-related revenues, grants, those really show in the capital budget side, but as you'll see later on, we're already making great strides to bring in transportation revenue. This is our general fund expenditures, history since FY16. You can see our expenditures dropped off dramatically from FY16 to 18, and then we sort of climbed out of that hole until 21. And we're just now starting to be able to increase our expenditures because of the budget position and downtown development. This 16 to 19 period, I really consider it unsustainable. We struggled desperately to meet our urban maintenance spending goals. VDOT gives us around $750,000 a year. And we have to do a Weldon Cooper survey every year that accounts for where that money was spent. It can only be spent on maintenance, cannot be spent on capital outlay. So it was very hard to meet those goals during those years. I don't consider that sustainable. And then this coming year, we're looking at a total of a 7.5% budgeted increase, proposed budget increase, which, considering we're at 8.5% inflation, we're still below the rate of inflation for our budget increase. And again, these 22 and 23 shown in this slide are budgeted figures, not actuals.
A quick question, and it's related to the information in the pink or red. How much typically do jurisdictions, what's that benchmark that we're supposed to be spending?
Most jurisdictions are spending 40% more towards maintenance effort than they're actually getting.
Okay. Thank you.
General fund expenditures comments. The enterprise fleet program definitely improves the FY23 and future outlook for fleet repairs and maintenance costs. Somewhere around $8,000 to $24,000 per year in the 10-year model. So once we do get all these new vehicles, we expect our repair costs to drop off. Facilities division investment, major repairs and improvements at existing facilities and new city hall will reduce cost in future fiscal years. Is already paying off. Our investment in facilities division has already paid off in contract services, as we spoke earlier. Substantial energy and fuel cost increases are budgeted for. I think we all know that that's justified. The price at the pump is out of control. So we have tried our best to use industry models or industry predictions to govern our FY23 fuel predictions. But you have seen the impacts on procurement. Everything, price of goods is through the roof, especially when we're buying equipment. So you can expect with facilities and fleet to see inflation really hit in the next budget year. Again, our fuel predictions are tough because we don't have hours meters on our cars, especially our police vehicles and fire and EMS vehicles sit at idle a lot. So it's really hard to say exactly how much idle time these vehicles have on them. So, you know, everybody wants to use the MPG, and what's our savings going to be if a vehicle gets 27 miles to the gallon as opposed to 18 miles to the gallon? Well, we don't drive a lot of miles. We're a pretty small city. What we do is put a lot of idle hours on our emergency and police vehicles. So until we can figure out a better way to track idle hours on those vehicles, it's really hard to judge exactly what fuel cost savings are going to be. Staffing and professional services. Increases in development services are necessary to handle the increased development activity. But again, we will be looking at our fee schedules, proposing increases to try to offset those costs with fee revenues. But we can't do without professional services increases until we're through this ramp up in building permit submissions and site permit submissions. An investment in the mowing contract and increased spending in streets have improved the VDOT urban maintenance expenditure reporting. It's very true. You know, it's very difficult to always say, well, staff hours, you know, not something that VDOT's very fond of, trying to calculate all your staff hours as your primary expenditure. But when you're showing that you're spending it directly towards a mowing contract, it makes it much easier. We have been spending more on paving. So not the resurfacing operations count towards our urban maintenance funding, spending reporting. So that's every year that we ramp that up makes that Weldon Cooper easier to answer. This next year with $400 and some thousand proposed in our resurfacing budget, we'll probably join the rest of those jurisdictions that spend 40% more than they're given by VDOT. And then GIS software investments are setting the stage for efficiency, productivity, reporting improvements across the divisions. Water and sewer revenues, general comments, positive outlook for user fees based on new development, 1.26 million per year net impact by FY26. And expect minor but positive budget impacts for new connection fees. Again, connection fees aren't big and they're one time, but we do expect, expect some positive budget impact from those new connection fees. And then tap fees, 12 million over 5 years. Big help to the Water Sewer Enterprise Fund as we start these, phased water system improvements that are really going to draw down the fund balance. Water replacement, water meter replacement and AMI. Again, this has been a really tough couple years. We knew our meters were about 15 years old. That is about the industry standard. We weren't exactly expecting the level of drop off that we saw. We went from replacing 30 to 50 meters a year to 30 to 50 meters a month. So sometimes it's the register, sometimes it's the, sometimes it's the radio, sometimes it's the actual meter itself. But we've been doing nothing but replacing meters for the past 2 years, so couldn't time this any better. We are working with a vendor to get a full meter replacement, smart meter and AMI system in place. That will reduce staff obligations. Under the current contract that we're considering, we would not be responsible for meter maintenance. That would be the responsibility of the vendor. And currently we're looking to actually still use our staff to do monthly shutoffs. Right. But we are going to at least test and explore an option for automatic shutoffs. It's a big contract cost increase because putting solenoid valves on every meter that can be, controlled through the AMI system is not cheap. But currently, for 2 days every month, it's all hands on deck at Public Works to do meter shutoffs and meter reconnects. So, and we also are looking at the potential for a stopgap measure with our SCADA alerts using this new AMI system. So, and I mentioned before that this AMI system, they are providing some more data loggers, and that will help us to track down even more leaks faster. We'll have our data loggers. They'll have data loggers that we can set out that will tie directly into the AMI. So about probably double, if not triple, our detection activity, our leak detection activity with the implementation of this system. And user fees have not been increased, but only altered in structure in over a decade. So what that means is that for a while we tried a tiered usage plan, but it did not work well with the apartments. So yeah, we went to a tiered usage system, then we abandoned the tiered usage system for residential, but we haven't actually altered the rates in over a decade. Again, this is a picture of what development impacts mean. That bottom blue line is what our cost increase will be buying the water to supply all of this development. that greenish line is what our revenues will be. So you can see there's a stark difference between those two. So that's where that 1.26 million per year by FY26 comes into play. You can see what we pay for water is not representative of the revenues we bring in for all these new accounts. This is our water and sewer expenditures over the past since FY16. These are our operating expenses. So I take out the capital and the admin fee. So it's more representative of what I would consider controllable operating expenses, things that we can adjust in our budgeting. You can see we had some pretty drastic spikes. That year was a spike in UOSA operations and maintenance due to record rainfall and some big plant repairs and maintenance they had to do. And then we had a huge spike in the Prince William County Service Authority purchase because Fairfax Water was doing some big plant improvements over there. So these things were really out of our control. These were big, huge impacts to our budget and what we normally consider a controllable part of our budget, but we got surprised halfway through the year both of these times with huge operation and maintenance fees. You can see we've actually budgeted a decrease from FY22 to FY23, but these are just budgeted figures. That FY22 figure may not be that high. There may be some contribution back to the fund balance at the end of this year. But right now we're looking at a 0.7% decrease from FY22 to FY23 or $31,000. General comments, our operating user fee, capital tap fee, revenue improvements must be taken advantage of. All this development, all the increased revenues, we need to take advantage of that for better O&M and leak detection and repair and capital system improvements to ensure that our capacities remain adequate. Right now, we're in a pretty good position with water capacity and sewer capacity. We certainly would not be if we don't pay attention to I&I and keep detecting leaks and repairing them, getting our systems tighter. Aggressive leak detection and repair program has ensured that elevated purchase amounts are short-lived. Normally, when I see a bill that's higher than the previous month, and I call Alan and say, hey, I'm about to sign a invoice, looks like we went up 15% last month. He already knows about it. We've already been in the vaults on a daily basis. We know what our readings are, and our correlators and data loggers are already set out in the field, and we're already tracking them down. So when I say short-lived, usually we don't see spikes last more than 2 to 3 weeks, and that's generally the time it takes to track them down and get repair crews in the streets. UOSA operations and maintenance fluctuates. Those are variables beyond our control. And transfer to capital is ramping up to cover the phased water system improvements. Stormwater revenues. This is a look at general stormwater revenues. Everyone is familiar with the fact that we've been increasing fees to increase contribution to reserves in preparation for our major stream restoration activities that will accomplish our TMDL goals. This ramp up was when we got out of the audit condition and the compliance condition with DEQ and started really making investments into this program. General comments on stormwater revenues. We will have to continue incremental rate increases to build TMDL reduction capital capacity. Rate increases will delay our need to borrow, but they will not alleviate our need to borrow after FY23, and we are doing an 8% proposing an 8% fee increase in FY23. Exploring all options with focus on public-private partnerships to reduce those TMDL costs, to reduce the total borrowing amount, and to reduce the amount of fee increase we have to propose. There are a lot of grant opportunities for public-private partnerships in stormwater right now. So if we stay focused on public-private partnerships, we may qualify for some of these larger and more available grant opportunities. Site inspection revenues ramp up with development permits, but that also triggers an increased workload, pulling them away from their basic O&M. In Q2, I think I showed you in my Q2 or Q1 and Q2 presentation that the entire site inspections division, 100% of their staff hours, their documented hours, was towards Village and Park Central site inspections in Q2. So clearly this summer it's going to be a struggle. We've already pulled from other sections of Public Works to keep pond mowing going because site and storm crews are out here doing site inspections. Staffing is essential to maintain quality control with site inspections and still achieve reasonable expectations of pond maintenance. I put the word reasonable in there because we spoke about this earlier. Staff doesn't always agree with residents on what a stormwater pond should look like. You know, it is a stormwater retention facility, not manicured. It's not a sport field or something like that. Stand of grass and vegetation really aids in its function instead of hindering it. And when it gets to a certain level of growth, yeah, we're probably hindering the capacity of the pond. But we've made great strides in getting our ponds to the place that they're at, and we don't really consider it necessary to mow a pond more than 3 to 4 times a year. Stormwater operating expenses. Again, this is less contributions and transfers, trying to take a look at some of the more controllable operating expenses. You can see that these are just budgeted figures for FY23 and FY22. But yes, we continue to increase our spending, operating spending in the stormwater division. Comments, pond clearing and mowing has been ramped up. We've improved our methodology, like with the green climber. It's definitely improving the way we do things. Turnover retention continues to be an issue. You can see that we still have a vacancy in stormwater, and with the potential transitions coming up, we may have 2 vacancies in stormwater soon. And it's a relatively new niche, municipal enforcement, so it's pretty competitive out there. Lots of guys have switched gears in their careers and started getting stormwater certifications, and now they're chasing money. So Virginia DEQ scrutiny on the city's program is high, but developers seem to be getting used to the heightened regulation. I can honestly say the past couple years have been pretty smooth sailing. So either we're doing a fantastic job out in the field and in the office and meeting DEQ's expectations, or developers in general maybe are starting to get the hint and they're just doing things the way that they should be doing things in DEQ's eyes. MS4 monitoring and reporting duties becoming more procedural. So, you know, what was all new territory to us, 2014, 2015, 2016, is becoming sort of old hat. And now the void we're trying to fill is administrative assistance. It's all the putting together the annual reports, putting together the actual putting together each report for each impaired body of water that we contribute to every year. Those are the big tasks that we're trying to figure out how to handle between Alan and I. And that's why we've recommended the administrative assistant for Public Works to sort of help fill that void. And then professional services will continue to be a need in stormwater as Virginia DEQ expectations grow. We talked about the fact that they want actual plans of all of the stormwater ponds, which we don't really have. We have drawings of some of them, not all of them. We certainly don't have the original capacity plans for all of our ponds. Solid waste revenues, just, you know, we all know the story there. We've had to raise rates, but we've tried not to, but contract costs have gone up. Stable rates are not likely as haulers, you know, continue to absorb these tipping fees, and the fuel price outlook's not helping at all. Fixed maximum increases in the contracts. We started our last RFP with a maximum 3% per year. We're told by the haulers that's absolutely ridiculous. No one's going to bid your contract, so it wound up at 5% per year. A combination of, you know, fuel costs, CPI, tipping fees. We're getting even more pushback this year. And I think there's actually a comment in here, but we do have a new host fee that will be coming in because of the transfer station here, and that will help the revenue picture somewhat. 7% increase is what we're proposing to help offset the anticipated spike in contract costs. We are anticipating about a $200,000 to $250,000 spike in our contract costs with this new contract. There's no real.
That's how much?
200 to 250.
Okay.
I hope that that's realistic. We had the pre-bid. I was sitting in a room with a bunch of people that are swallowing this fuel cost increase. They've been swallowing tipping fee increases and recycling tipping fee increases for 3 to 4 years. There's not a lot of there's not a lot of ways for me to think that we're going to keep within $200,000 of where we're currently at. We have rejected an increase based on fuel costs because it's not in our contract model from our current vendor. We said, no, your only increase opportunity under this contract's in January, but we would have already seen a drastic increase in this contract if we allowed it to happen. So I can't anticipate we won't go up $200,000 to $250,000. But that's why we're, as Laura spoke to earlier, we're trying to get you some adults, some things to weigh when we're trying to decide what we want the level of service to be. But unfortunately, I think if we're trying to stay even at $200,000 above our current contract cost, I think we're going to have to see some sacrifice in level of service. It's just...
It does. I don't understand it because we're not that big of a city.
We're not, but...
So it should be a little easier to provide service for us.
Well, and I think there was some revelation at the pre-bid that there is a fixed tipping fee rate available to any hauler that hauls to Dominion Transfer. So we'll wait and see how their bids come back. A lot of them were not aware of that. You know, you would think that in a competitive industry, they would be aware that somebody new came into town and set up a transfer station. Maybe they were aware of that, but they weren't aware that there are fixed tipping fees for refuse collected within the city bounds. So that's a positive. You know, I just remember that when we bid this contract last time, our current vendor was $250,000 lower than the next vendor. So when I say I think we'll see increases, you know, I think we'll go up by 200 to 250, but we'll know in the next few weeks.
Also, the cost of labor would be fixed regardless of the size of the locality.
Yeah, the cost, the big difference, the big advantage that we'll have this year is, you know, again, they won't have to run 35, 40 minutes down the road to Waste Management or, you know, 50 minutes down the road to Covanta to dump, or that they won't have to pay exorbitant rates to go dump at Waste Management's transfer station or at the American Disposal Facility. So, you know, before they were either driving a long distance to chase lower tipping fees, or they were dumping at a more convenient location where they were paying exorbitant tipping fees. Now that they have a place that's right here in the middle of the town with fixed tipping fees, there is some hope. I'm just trying to be realistic. I don't think that in an industry that's really seen nothing but cost increases, and now with these fuel increases, that we can expect to stay where we're at.
Yeah. No, that's not realistic.
You're right.
How much do you anticipate the host fee to be?
We're still waiting to see. They did not have their billing software up and running, so they're currently just taking waste from their own company. And we were told that in May they would have their billing, or their, I guess, point of use. I don't know what you call that kind of software. Where
POS.
they're actually, I guess when they have that up and running, they'll start accepting other haulers, and then we'll really know what the host fee is going to amount to when they start collecting refuse from outside.
So I wonder if it will offset the increase of 7% you guys are.
Probably.
Maybe.
Could come very close, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it could. That's, you know, it's yet to be seen.
Yeah.
It is a small facility. you know, and it's really, they have to get more efficient in their operations for that host fee to become substantial. So as they grow and they age, they'll get more efficient at packing those trucks
Right.
and hauling them off, and they'll be able to accept more and more weight every day, so. This is just a look at our solid waste expenditures. Again, you know, we have had tipping fee increases. We've talked about it every time it's happened. I think that our current hauler's been kind of gentle on us and cooperative. You know, we do have sort of a mutual interest in their development of the transfer station and helping them be the little guy compete with the big guys. So, you know, I feel like this picture could have looked worse from FY17 to FY22, but I am anticipating a pretty substantial spike. Your total expenditures is the top line, and your contract cost, your contract cost to your hauler is the green line. You can see that, you know, it's a pretty bare bones contract. But these are budgeted. Again, we should come very close to this FY22 figure because it is a fixed contract, but we're not sure what 23 is going to look like exactly until we get these bids back. Based on trends in tipping fees and fuel costs, you know, we spoke about that. We are anticipating a $250,000 increase in contract costs with the new contract. The difference in contract costs and total expenditures represents a pretty bare bones contract. The only thing not in there is a little bit of Laura's salary, a little bit of my salary, to cover just management of the actual solid waste, and then the dumpsters that we pull for municipal operations. So when Jay or Public Works or somebody needs a dumpster to clean up public facilities. So really that's the only difference. The only difference in those two lines not tracking identically together. And still no positive outlook for the recycling industry. I haven't heard any news. Occasionally, haulers will feel more optimistic about certain types of plastic or certain glass, you know, start accepting different types of glass, but no real macro level improvements in the recycling picture. During the pre-bid, it was clear that the haulers are very weary of inflation impacts on fuel and tipping fees. So, you know, I wish I could say they were all really optimistic, but no, it wasn't that kind of meeting. I want to take a little bit of time to highlight transportation. You know, transportation FY22 year in review. We did get $4.3 million in announced awards already, but we're expecting substantially more grant awards coming in the near future. This is the list of all of the different grant applications that we expect to get, or grant programs that we expect to get awards from. Grant applications requests outstanding. Still have a federal earmark request out there, US DOT RAISE grant out there, and MWCOG roadway safety in the park. Dewberry, we had them conduct a parking study and produce parking maps for the downtown. We're having a complete street study performed to try to improve the pedestrian and multimodal experience in our downtown and to increase safety in the downtown. Continued PE and right-of-way phase on Connor Drive extension and Kent Drive reconstruction. And we established Manassas Park, Prince William County regular coordination meetings. This has been a big help in making sure that when grant opportunities come available, that we're taking a cooperative effort as 3 jurisdictions working as one. And then high-speed zones, phase 1 is completed, and we'll be working on phase 2 and 3 in the next fiscal year. West Carondelet parking analysis, you guys should be seeing a presentation about that in one of the upcoming meetings. VRE garage parking garage management. And then the Fugro pavement analysis, I think we spoke about that at the last meeting. We thought we'd have the data by now. We got put behind VDOT and level of importance, so now they're saying mid-May or early May we'll have our actual food growth data from our pavement analysis. We got 11 projects included in the MBTA transaction plan. We have already put the burn down at Euclid and Bloom's Quarry for that school crossing. You guys are probably familiar with that nightmare in the morning. We are still waiting for the materials to come in for the flashing signs, but the burn down is already in place. We did implement a resident complaint portal, and we've been handling complaints through that and taking action on those. Urban Development Area Comp Plan Amendment, we accomplished that, so now we'll qualify for even more grant opportunities. And we've been through the V-Trans UDA needs layer. And then professional development. This is all the stuff that Steve has already participated in during his first year of tenure here. So it's been a busy year for sure. And then our FY23 work plan, we have to get the preliminary smart scale application is in, but the full application will be due for the Route 28 innovative intersections improvements, and then the Park Central Complete Streets project, and then the trail design and construction, and then other as defined. But yeah, we'll continue to seek grant opportunities everywhere we can. Complete Streets implementation, as we get the study results back, we'll be looking how to implement projects from that study. Gateway and wayfinding signage citywide, phase 2 and 3 high speed zone signs, Manassas Drive traffic study RFP, we need to get that on the street to get a comprehensive evaluation of Manassas Drive. Connor and Upper Kent construction, we have heard now that the Verizon will clear Connor next week. VDOT has both of these bid packages under review, so I would expect you'll see these projects hit the street mid-May as far as actual construction bid, which means you'll see work on these projects probably before the turn of the fiscal year.
That's great.
Cul-de-sac islands, we have to bring this back to you. There was a lot more to it, and we also came to our attention that we had only included one of the Primrose Rosebud Islands. So we'll be bringing this back to you with a different evaluation. After we spoke with Branscombe, we've asked them to sort of, they did not want to do just the islands. It's more work for them to just do the islands than to do the entire cul-de-sac.
Right.
So our numbers were a little low. We'll be bringing that back to you for further discussion.
Makes sense.
Active transportation plan completion, master plan for transportation RFP, West Carondelet parking implementation, and then Park Central project management. This is ongoing, paving and road maintenance completion, additional streets projects and concrete work. We were able to get more concrete work done this year than I expected, and that was pretty good. We had some really bad spots in Blooms where we had some resident complaints, and we were actually able to do those, and then Mark was able to stay within budget and go out and do some more concrete work. So I was worried that we weren't going to do any when we spent all of our paving money early, but we actually got more concrete work done than I thought. And then no commercial parking signage project, that was a discussion for a different day. We did bid that. We only had one response. It was not positive. We did not budget adequately per that response. So we're actually in negotiations with that vendor now to see what we can do before we bring you guys anything for discussion. Connor Drive South, preliminary engineering, the rail crossing at Manassas Drive study and construction. We're desperately trying to get that improved. We get a lot of citizen complaints about the roughness at the tracks, and it has vastly deteriorated since they resurfaced it 5 years ago. So we've already met with them. They're coming out to do their restoration work, their 5-year restoration work mid-May. We're going to see how much coaxing we can do to get them to do something better than they did last time. Manassas Drive resurfacing, we are, hopeful to get that state of good repair money. Seemed like we were a shoo-in. Think we still are, but I don't think there's been any real positive movement from Richmond on going ahead and approving all those state of good repair spending plans. City trails connectivity, salt shed BMP replacement, the Russia branch culverts, that will be a big focus of our summertime activity, making sure that we're moving forward. We're sort of up in the air with the raised grant application, and we need to hear on that before we switch gears and go another direction. Safe routes to schools, and then continued committee participation and continued partnership development. And then this is a general note, not so much about transportation, but a big focus of FY23 is decision point time on stream restoration. Running out of time, got to do something. So that's going to be a big thing for us to address in FY23. Key goals, I'll make this fast, department-wide, develop standard operating procedures within each division, develop recruitment and retention strategies, continue coordination with finance to improve audit efficiency and accounting practices, and utilize our new software for better tracking, reporting, and customer service. Any questions?
Calvin, that was wonderful, very informative. Thank you very much.
Every time I do capital or operating, it's always so long.
Well,
you have a lot to
I
talk
for one
about.
appreciate the detail.
Yeah.
I really do.
Yeah.
So, Councilmember Moore, do you have any comments or questions?
I just thank Calvin for the very exhaustive and thorough report. I greatly appreciate it. Very informative. No questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any
Gotta wait with
questions,
words.
comments?
Yeah.
Question or comment? Okay.
I have a question. The Manassas Drive study, is that for this FY23 or is that going to be for FY24?
So the actual Manassas, the
other side.
comprehensive Manassas Drive study, well, there's really, I guess you could say 3, but are you referring to the safety study?
Yes.
So we applied for the safety grant.
Okay.
We have not heard. It is, I don't know if they have announced like a drop dead date for award notification, but yeah, we have applied for that. I don't know when we'll hear about award, but we haven't planned that project yet because we don't know about the status of funding. There is a Manassas Drive corridor study that we'll be issuing the RFP for very soon that studies the Manassas Drive corridor in its entirety. We sort of put that on hold because we were doing the complete streets analysis that ties more into this Park Central development and has allowed us to supplement, our raised grant application for the culverts. But then there's also Manassas Drive traffic signals analysis that will happen in FY26, which is perfect timing because by that point we expect the downtown to be built out. We expect to be able to evaluate intersections that are, already seeing a deteriorated level of service from increased vehicle counts. And that's a perfect time to come back in and look at your signals and say, hey, here's some opportunities for improvement. And where are pedestrians struggling to get around, where a bicycle is struggling to get around in this new configuration. So it's really a lot of Manassas Drive projects. So yes, they're kind of spread out over the next 3 to 4 years.
Okay, and this is off my guest topic. It's not budget related, but there's some electrical wiring that's basically on the floor on Manassas Drive between Denver Drive and Colfax Drive. That's just on the floor. Like we have to kind of jump over the cable. So who do we? Is that Public Works or Novak?
Hopefully it's just data.
I don't know what it is.
Hopefully it's just data cable. Comcast and Verizon both have aerial. Verizon has aerial fiber. I think Comcast has some aerial fiber and some aerial copper. But yeah, between Colfax and Denver on the north or south side?
I guess.
North side.
Which was west? The west.
Like what direction?
Going towards the 7-Eleven.
Yeah. Okay, so on that If we're going from here, it's on your right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can someone take a look at that to
Yeah,
confirm?
no,
what-
that's-
Okay.
That's concerning.
Yeah, we have
And hopefully it's just data.
I think it is,
Yeah.
but just in case.
Yeah, data cable's not really a danger
Yeah, we
to
have
the
to
public.
kinda
It's
walk
more
away
like a
when we
trip
go slow.
hazard and a nuisance, but they need to get out there and fix it. That used to be something we actually did in building inspections years ago. We would ride around and make lists of everywhere that they were
I
sagging
don't know if it's
or.
because of the houses being built on the other side. I don't know what's going on, but.
Yeah, they may have cut it back themselves and just threw it out on the sidewalk. That happens.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll take a look at it.
Mhm.
Gosh, I hope it's not electric.
Yeah, I
That's
know.
not a safe situation.
Terrible.
So, a couple things for you.
Mhm.
All good. You look worried, all good. The first one, I like to say, last year I had to put a fence in and I dealt with your staff. They didn't know who I was, which is what, no one needs to know who I am. All I can say is that they were extremely, extremely helpful and polite. They were also shocked that I still had not the blueprints, but the survey from 1970.
We're kind of like that too. I think we still have everything that was, if it existed, we still have it. We don't throw stuff away.
For your
some
house,
reason.
1970?
Yeah, that's when my parents bought it, yeah, my parents kept it. I didn't have to pay the money, so. The second thing is, do you have a schedule for when you're gonna do the street cleaning? And I ask this because then I can, do the litter pickup prior to when you do the street cleaning.
Street sweeping?
Yeah, that's what I meant.
Yeah, we started preparing a fixed schedule about 14 months ago. And we were actually, we've never had enough signage around the city to be able to co-locate street sweeping signs. And we certainly didn't want to spend $250,000, $500,000 putting up street sweeping signs. So when we saw that it was likely that we were going to pass this no commercial vehicle ordinance, that we started planning for a permanent sweeping schedule. Right now, we don't operate under a fixed schedule. There's 2 to 3 guys that operate the sweeper. When we have an opportunity to sweep, they go out, they mark, they put out the temporary signs and they sweep, but we don't have a fixed schedule. But we can try to coordinate that with you.
If you would please, because what happened when we were doing the last one a few weeks ago, we actually found a metal rod in the gutter. It was pliable enough that we could bend it. But I would imagine if the sweeper came out and sucked it up, it would do some damage.
Probably wouldn't suck it up.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd take a lot of suction. That's like with the leaf vac, even when the leaves are wet,
Mm-hmm.
they won't come up.
struggles.
Yeah, but it'll definitely, the
push
big
it around.
hazard would be like because they're metal brooms.
Okay.
The tines are metal, so they might throw it out of the gutter pan and throw it into the street, which would be a hazard, but yeah, it probably won't suck it up into the machine.
Okay.
I
Either way,
wish,
there's-
that'd be really nice. Things would get cleaner if it was capable of doing it.
Also might be like a small bird that got sucked up in there too. But those are just the two things.
Yeah,
Just one
the
second.
street, like I said, we started when we sort of felt like there was gonna be a no parking sign program, a citywide installation of signs. It was like, oh, wow, we're gonna have this great opportunity to do a fixed sweeping schedule, and we can just co-locate on existing posts and post our sweeping schedule. So we actually started creating one. Now we're still just trying to be able to afford this sign installation program. So but when we have a fixed schedule, things like that will be much easier. For right now, just if you could let me know, and I can coordinate directly with the streets group.
It's very flexible. I just choose a
Yeah.
week. So we'll figure it out. And then the last one is I do hear from residents, and they are happy. They've seen an increase of the code enforcement and at the same time a decrease. They're starting to see a decrease in
Violations?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, it's been a long day so far. But that's it. Thank you very much. Just want to let you know that, the good interaction that I and my family have had with the staff with the permits.
Thank you.
I've got some.
Question?
First, Calvin, I apologize for skipping out during your presentation. I I wouldn't do that unless it was an important phone call, which it was. Good news with the VRE and the parking garage. The operations board last Friday approved the issuance of the IFP, the invitation for bids for construction. So we'll see what we get from that. My question is about slide 27. I know you're at 40.
Yeah.
Okay, so you just broke down the water and sewer revenues. I just wanted to make sure if that line going up was the revenue, or what is this line going up? Is that the development-driven user fee increase?
Which one?
It's 27.
I can probably speed through this now. There we go. Yes, so that is the user fees, the increase. So right now you can see, look at the money axis, starting at 0. It's not our current user fees, it's the actual predicted increase. So it starts at 0 in FY22 before any of this is filled out and we start seeing user fees. But by FY26, we expect to see $1.389 million additional annual user fees. And the bottom line represents our purchase increase.
Okay, so there's a wide gap between our revenue and how much we're spending for purchase. But there's a lot other things that get, okay.
Now, I would say that doesn't evaluate sewer and our costs.
Right.
But because so much of our treatment costs are related to I&I, is negligible. You'd be surprised. The line would probably be lower than that water purchase line. That's more of a fixed cost as to where so much of what we pay in sewer treatment is purely I&I.
Okay, got it. Because I would just think from the resident's perspective, if they look at this graph, they're going to think, well, how come we're paying so much if the costs for water are so low? But there's a lot more to it than that.
Well, yes, but a lot of your user fee is also the basic $45 minimum fee that offsets your actual capacity purchases passed. So, we're paying debt service with a big portion of that.
Right. And my other question is, West Carondelet, the parking implementation project, are you considering that the number of vehicle accidents that's happened on that road when you're thinking about considering increasing the parking spaces?
Not looked at accident data.
Okay.
We've definitely considered the issue with Manassas Christian School
Mm-hmm.
and their pickup schedule, and we noticed that we weren't always at the standard for hydrant spacing, parking away from the hydrants, making sure that we're adhering to the intersection requirements, no parking within 20 feet of an intersection. Those things were all considered, but not accident data. Is that something you want us to take a look at?
No, I was just asking if you consider that. And my last question is, or thing to mention, is the sign at Signal Bay Park, the walking sign, it stays on.
I know, it's so that's, do you remember probably 3 years ago, when that first
Yeah, it was really
went in
good.
and functioned, and
Yeah, it was
we
good.
had some complaints. Prince William had called me and they wanted to know when we were going to take it over.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, we didn't ever intend to take it over. That's Prince William County and it's VDOT right of way.
Right.
And I sort of said to them at the time, I guess if you're telling me that VDOT won't take it over because it doesn't meet VDOT spec, and that the county doesn't want to maintain it, if you're saying that it's just going to be removed if the city doesn't take it over, then, yeah, if you guys would prepare all the easements and give us legal access to it, then, I could take that before the body, but we never heard back. So it's just been sort of hanging in this limbo. VDOT doesn't want to take it into their inventory because does not meet VDOT specification. Prince William is not used to maintaining things, transportation related in VDOT right of way. That's the agreement they have.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had once upon a time asked if the city would take it over, but we don't even own the right of way or have any legal rights to maintain it. So
Right.
Steve has reached out to them about the future of this signal. Again, I think a signal there is warranted. That is not a VDOT specified signal. It could be a full stop signal that I do believe meets VDOT spec, and that's the recommendation we've gotten for in our downtown from our engineers that are working to design here in the downtown. But those mid-block flashing crossings, they are a little risky. You know,
They
when
are.
it first went in, people just ignored it.
They
Then
give a
over the
false
years-
sense of security.
Well, but the
Right.
vehicles didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
And they were just ignoring it. It was very dangerous for pedestrians. And it's like vehicles learned it, but now that it stays in flash, now it's a false sense of security for the pedestrians because the vehicles are starting to unlearn it. And they're like,
Right.
oh, that doesn't mean anything. It's always like that.
They're Like a
completely
down, like
ignoring
the
it.
down
They are.
things at a train crossing.
Yeah, so we've reached out to Princeway. I don't know what the resolution is going to be. They may come back to us and say, we're going to take it out if the city doesn't maintain it. And then we'll bring it to you guys for further discussion.
Yeah.
Okay, thank
In
you.
the meantime, are
oddly
they
enough,
gonna
I was
upkeep
contacted
it? Are
this
they
morning
gonna,
about
like,
that
what's the
same
procedure for
issue.
getting that thing to turn
Doesn't
off?
seem to have a parent.
No.
It seems to just be this like homeless orphan signal.
It's not our realm.
Someone should
Well,
just
and it's not
take it
our
out.
right of way.
Right.
Yes.
So I don't think we have
Listed, but
jurisdiction.
We had actually asked for some sort of pedestrian improvements there when it was a proffered improvement or
Yeah, for the paving on Roseberry.
it was for Caden Ridge.
Oh,
When
that's right.
When they extended the trail, it was, I can't say it was a proffered condition, but it was more like a public improvement. Prince William does that. They'll have proffered conditions and then public improvements. And it was part of their public improvements package, and it was done really to satisfy our former zoning administrator who wanted to see some sort of pedestrian improvement there. But I guess VDOT and Prince William didn't communicate ahead of time, because VDOT, when it came time to take it over, said, no, it's not a VDOT spec product, we're not taking it over.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Calvin, thank you. That was wonderful.
Yes, nothing we can do.
And next, we have city manager report.
I don't have anything. Laszlo, do you have anything?
I think he had to tune out at 8:45.
Then I think that's it for us.
I beg your
I
pardon?
don't have anything else to add.
Okay.
When are we
Anything else?
voting on the,
Beg your pardon?
on the proposed budget? When are we voting on that?
Budget?
Keith, do we know the schedule when we're voting on that?
Have to be in June. You
Yeah.
have to have a public hearing.
Oh, I meant like the advertising part that Liza wants to do. That's- I thought it was in May or something.
Okay, not the actual budget.
Not the actual budget,
But
but the
when are we-
number he wants to advertise.
When are we voting on what to advertise? Okay. Do we know?
I'll find that answer for you. I don't have the top of my head.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Steve, just a reminder, if you got questions, we have to have them into Laszlo by the end of the month, which is
Like
this
this week?
Saturday.
Yeah, I'll make a note of
This
that.
week.
So.
Okay. Anything else for the good of the city?
Just one last thing.
Yes.
For the few people that are watching at home, just a reminder, the trash pickup, just the grassroots trash pickup is ongoing, and it ends this Saturday. So if folks want to go out and just do a half an hour, whatever they want, just please go out there and do that. If they have questions, just reach out to me. We've already had a number of people go out and spend, walk with 1.3 miles and collect a large amount of trash.
Okay, thank
And
you.
to those that did that, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you all.